My name is Beck Uziel. Everyone knows me as a loser who's completely useless at magic, but I'm about to prove them all wrong. I'm not the same person I used to be. Even though I'm broke and talentless, I somehow got into the kingdom's top magic academy. On the first day, when the professor announced that this test would decide our entire lives, he wasn't kidding. Our grades would determine if we'd end up in Class F or Class S. He ordered everyone to put their stuff away and demanded that anyone wearing glasses hand them over for inspection, to make sure nobody was cheating. I stayed quiet. To everyone here, I'm just a poor nobody. A total failure. When the test started, I didn't have a single answer. I looked around and realized only a few students were breezing through the questions. Geniuses, I guess. I didn't want to fall behind, so I reached for the glasses I wasn't planning on using yet. Just as I was about to put them on, the professor caught me. He barked that I hadn't turned them in for analysis. He checked them right in front of me, and for a second, I thought I was screwed. I thought I was about to be busted, but he didn't notice a thing, and just handed them back. No one else in this world has a pair like these. With these glasses, I can see every answer to the test, and a whole lot more. When the exam was over, the professor looked at my results and saw a major problem. There was one question that was supposed to be impossible to answer, but you'll find out more about that soon. A few days earlier, in the slums, a carriage with the mages takes our protagonist to the middle of nowhere, while he takes a nap and has a dream with a memory from the past, in which he said that, as soon as he grew up, he would become a mage, and his mother believed in him. His parents worked hard to get him a second-hand magic book. From that day on, he began to study magic to make them proud. However, he had to go to the doctor, and they said he had mana leakage syndrome. The boy was stunned and couldn't believe this illness. Our protagonist wonders whether these are Beck Uziel's memories or his own. Thus, our protagonist suddenly wakes up with a headache, realizing that it is already morning, and the mages comment that they were already going to wake him. After all, they are arriving in Lizoica, Arcanium's satellite city. At that moment, they stop the carriage and take a break in the middle of nowhere. Thus, he comes across the blue-haired girl, who quickly turns away and doesn't even greet him. He realizes things are fine and that he worried for nothing, because they are close to modernity and not so much to the Middle Ages. With magic existing in the ether world, in safe cities, trains and flying ships are used for long-distance travel. They are going to Lizoica to board a flying ship and finish the trip, which will be long. Lizoica is a city on the way to Arcanium, and the real episode will begin there, in the City of Magic, where there are renowned magic towers, as well as orders of magic knights and prestigious academies. And the academy with the most powerful mages and the most exceptional students is Stella Academy. That is why it is full of geniuses and nobles from all parts of the world who go there to study. He doesn't understand how the protagonist managed to get into that academy. Next, he decides to check his abilities to know what level he is at, realizing that mana leakage syndrome is at level 1, which increases his strength and agility. In addition, he has the sixth sense and detection acceleration that saved his life earlier. He has a curse that prevents him from accumulating mana inside his body. That is why it is mana leakage syndrome. It is a permanent curse that haunts Beck Uziel's life. However, this allows him to detect humans around him by using a sixth sense, besides allowing him to notice any attack coming toward him, even if he is looking the other way. The detection acceleration allowed him to see things as if time slowed down. If an attack comes toward him at a speed higher than what a human can detect, the ability activates. An essential ability for the protagonist, who cannot use mana or this sense for long, as it consumes the power of his mind. Thus, he reaches his status window and considers that he is at a good level for a beginner. The character Beck had low sensitivity, but his stats are different from when he was created. In Ether World, there isn't just one level, but rather one for each status, and skills, in the form of levels, and others, in the form of stars. The maximum level of a status is 9 stars. It is impossible to reach. Even playing for 10 years, he only managed to get 8 of them. He thinks he should invest in sensitivity for now, to improve his sixth sense and reaction speed. After that, he will increase vigor and other skills. For now, he decides to focus on sensitivity. His current problem is mana leakage syndrome, which must be resolved. Otherwise, he won't live for long. He knows he needs to evolve it into secrets of nature, and there is a way to strengthen this syndrome that is at Stella Academy. This means he only has the choice of going there if he wants to stop the end of the world and treat his syndrome. He didn't want to go to the academy. That's why he wanted to find something right there that could help. Suddenly, he notices that he missed some notifications and doesn't understand what he missed. However, at that moment, the mages start hurrying, saying they are already going to continue the journey. So, he decides to check the notifications he missed only later. Thus, some time passes and they arrive at the flying ships that are departing for Arcanium. The nobles notice our protagonist walking awkwardly, as if he had never traveled on a flying ship before, and they comment, with plenty of prejudice, that Stella Academy shouldn't let peasants and the poor in, for it is the most renowned academy in the world, and they think they'll sully it by letting bumpkins in. Our hero knows that petty children are the same in both worlds and ignores them. them. Suddenly, the bourgeois start shouting at him to stop, as if they wanted to pick a fight, until that idiot notices a white-haired person approaching and is shocked. This is the princess of the kingdom of Adalabit. The girl is Hong Bayan Adalabit, entering with an intimidating posture that makes everyone nervous and reverent, including the bourgeois who is bullying our hero, who becomes very nervous. All of them receive a simple, cold stare from the woman, as she ignores them and climbs the stairs, passing by our protagonist, who knows she is the villain of this world. Hong Bayan is one of the game's main characters, alongside the female protagonist, and they always get into arguments, and she always ends up dying at the end, no matter what path the player takes. She is always brutally eliminated in all of the game's endings. In some others, Princess Bayan is bullied by everyone at the academy before being expelled. In one of those, she goes through something so humiliating that she never appears in public again. It seems the game's developers have personal grudges against the villain and wanted her to suffer in every way. He heard that she is very popular among male players because of her beauty. After all these events, he begins to feel a dreadful hunger, coming face to face with a snack bar with beautiful food, but absurdly expensive. At that moment, he hears an announcement saying they will arrive in the city of Arcanium in 10 minutes, asking them to head to the first floor. As they are almost arriving in the city, our hero knows that many things will happen at Stella Academy, as several frightening people will cross his path. He knows that this is his reality now and decides to face the event that is about to happen. Our protagonist feels very tired during the trip, wondering if he will be able to survive at Stella Academy, or rather, if he will be able to survive in this merciless world full of threats. He feels like he wanted to have something to help him in a situation like this, and he remembers that there is a system notification that still hasn't arrived. This notification says that Project Constellatio gave several special rewards to him. He notices that the system windows have a business-like ethic and wonders what to choose from these rewards. He wonders whether he should take the light of return or the praise of flash and, after some research, notices that the item's power will be reduced for being too high. He wonders whether he should take a hyperspace teleport. In the research, the skill is an advanced version of teleportation and cannot be acquired. However, he can use his reward to increase his skill. Our protagonist gets irritated because the system is lowering the levels of things. The narrative power, which is a force that advances the story, is preventing this entity from fully materializing. Because of this accumulating narrative power, it still cannot provide advanced items to the protagonist, who is a novice. He wonders whether he can obtain bulbul glasses, and the system starts thinking about it. According to the examination carried out by the system, they conclude that they can provide this item. At that moment, our mage obtains the glasses just as he asked. He never thought the day would come when he would have to use these glasses, which contain the information he collected while playing the game. In Ether World, it was impossible to remember all the information about hunted monsters. Therefore, players created items that could store information. Our hero did that too, creating these glasses. The bulbul glasses make him remember everything he saw during his journey in the game. So, he asks the item to open the bulbul folder, which shows the monsters, dungeons, hunts, and characters that have already appeared in his journey. Soon, Beck opens this menu and begins analyzing the artifacts and monsters he has already seen out there. Because this place is his real life, there is no way to tell him how many repeatable quests he can do using the game system. However, with these glasses, he can obtain half the skills he had in the past. Suddenly, there was a buzz about someone called Acel. They say she is the eldest daughter of the traitor Dutch Malf, and our hero realizes she is the blue-haired girl. All the young people get angry at her for showing her face in the place and for having appeared there. Our protagonist remembers that the glasses allow him to access information about the story's characters. Through that, he discovers that Acel Malf is a fake heroine with ice magic, that she dies at the end, and other useless information about her. Beck Uziel keeps the information that she is a fake heroine and many impactful points about her, even in this place where he is now, which is the Ether World. The fact is that Ether World is a game based on a fantasy novel called Don't Love the Princess. In that novel, the heroine Acel loses her entire family in a tragedy. She grows by confronting the schemes of the villainous Hong Bayan and ends up getting involved with the game's male protagonist. In the end, the revenge goes wrong and the characters protect her. However, the ending changes after readers' feedback. The problem is that, even though the game world is based on the novel, the story is completely different. In the game, an original character named Flame was added and took the heroine's position. That character was a woman who had a normal life in the modern world and was transported to this place. Unlike the novel, Acel became the fake heroine in the game, while Flame became the real one. Despite the player's numerous attempts and efforts, she was not able to survive on her route, which resulted in her being removed from the position of true heroine. After taking off the bulbul glasses, he says that this has nothing to do with him and sets it aside. He wonders if it is just his imagination, but he thinks he has seen the girl somewhere. He feels he should get off the flying ship and finally arrives at Stella Academy. The headmaster says that demonic humans are mages who used hidden powers and became creatures. Even at this moment, they continue their invasions, opening portals and going into ancient dungeons to invade the magical world. Everyone finds the headmaster's lecture boring, but he continues talking about the ceremony for the four who are admitted admitted with high scores, asking these students, who will represent the freshmen, to come up on stage. Our mage sees Flame and the villainous Hong Bayan, as well as the blue-haired girl, among others. He notices their faces shining, living up to their status as the plot's main characters. The most striking among them is Ma Yuxiang, the student with the highest score at the academy. The protagonist recognizes the famous Ma Yuxiang, considered the most handsome and intelligent in the story. Ma Yuxiang is the character defined as the most honorable between heaven and earth. With 9-star mana status, he has the potential of a deity and is a genius who controls all the elements. Even if he cannot achieve the true ending, he at least wants to avoid the bad endings by bringing Ma over to the good side. However, that depends entirely on Flame and how she will act from that point on. Because she is from the same reality as our hero, he intends to try to get closer to her. However, things get complicated if she considers him an enemy and refuses the proposal, even though he has privileged information. Flame is a possessor of a fantasy romance novel, and he is a possessor of a fantasy romance game. Even without having that much importance in the story, Baek Yuziel intends to do it. Moreover, the heroine has the special ability to purify dark demonic humans. On the other hand, she also has an ability that allows her to destroy those around her. Being close to her will affect him severely. Therefore, his role is to support the heroines from afar and avoid getting involved as much as possible. With that, the director concludes the entrance ceremony, and episode 2 about Stella Academy comes to an end. Our protagonist enters the classroom at Stella Academy. He remembers his college days and finds it strange to become a student again after graduating. The fact that he has a golden pocket watch helps him a lot. This is Stella's pocket watch, which proves that he is a student at the most prestigious academy in the world. With this item in his possession, he can get any service and treatment of the highest quality. Our protagonist wants to use this advantage as quickly as possible. At that moment, the professor with a scar on his face enters the room. Starting the assessment, he says that students who wear glasses will be examined first. Our protagonist knows that the academy's curriculum is more rigorous than any university in Korea, having tests on the first day, called the class placement assessment. It is a test to determine which class the student will be placed in, based on their level. As soon as our hero receives the test, he doesn't understand anything written on the paper. Compared to the ordinary college entrance exam, which is difficult, in this one students are ranked from S to F. Most of the playable characters are in a class based on their score on this exam. On the other hand, Baek entered the academy in last place and was placed in class F. He notices Ma Yuxiang, bored during the placement exam, knowing the boy is on another level, since he already finished his assessment before everyone else, and he understands why he finds everything around him so boring, summing up this character's nature in the word boredom. Because he was born into the most powerful family and is the smartest and most talented person in the entire world. Therefore, it depends on the female protagonist whether he will be a bad person or a good one. After all, the demonic humans who want to bring ruin to the world are interested in Ma Yuxiang. Our protagonist compares himself a lot to the geniuses in his class. He wonders if he can use the bulbul glasses there, since he accumulated many skills in the library with them. He decides to test it, since he has nothing to lose, and at that very moment the professor already notices him taking out the glasses. Then the professor says that if someone uses glasses, they must be inspected first. As soon as he takes Baek's glasses in his hand, he notices an energy around them. Our hero knows that if he finds out they aren't normal glasses, he will be expelled. Suddenly, the system says that a part is missing from the glasses and asks if he wants to summon it. Meanwhile, the professor continues anxiously inspecting the bulbul glasses. Finally, he says he didn't sense any energy at all and returns the glasses to our protagonist. He knows that if the glasses' functions were active, he would have been expelled. Then he puts the item on his face. He really can see the answers to the placement exam, knowing he can place first on the test because of that. And if he keeps it up, he can escape class F and reach class S. However, at that exact moment, the professor says the test is over and tells them to turn in their exams. Baek Yuziel only did 3 questions, and the tests are collected. The moment the professor takes the exams in his hands, something leaves him stunned. The protagonist thought he would finally escape class F, but it was too good to be true. Suddenly, the professor becomes agitated and asks Baek to hand over the glasses to him. Inspecting the glasses, he deems it impossible and asks to call Dr. Grayan. Our protagonist wrote everything clearly so it wouldn't look like cheating and doesn't understand all the commotion. Baek wonders if he got caught cheating. Then the magic engineering professor, Dr. Grayan, analyzes the glasses. Even with the protagonist solving the questions very quickly, he doesn't see any mana coming from the glasses, stating that he solved the questions with pure intelligence, without cheating. Grayan tells Lee Hanwal to apologize to the student and guide him, because he is very impressive. Professor Lee Hanwal apologizes to our protagonist. Our hero cheated and knows that if Bulbul's main functions were active, he would be caught. Finally, he accepts the apology and is grateful he wasn't caught. Meanwhile, in Professor Lee's office, he grades the placement exams. An older lady asks if those are this year's freshman exams. Edeltaman, the professor from the Council of Elders, is excited about this year's freshman. After all, Hong Bayan, the principal princess of Adalabit, the kingdom of flames, is among them. There is the successor who, at 12 years old, was chosen to be the empire's prince because of his magical prowess. That is Jeremy Scalvin, who defeated his brother in the race for the throne, as well as Hei Wonriang, the successor to the master of the full moon magic tower, the largest in the world. The professor knows it was difficult to devise the exam questions with so many people from elite families. The professor thanks the elder for the compliments about his exam questions. Just as the elder mentioned, the class placement test featured a new type of question. The first 3 questions were difficult for those who studied in the usual way. The intention behind that question was to test flexibility in those who didn't know the answer. Second, it was for the person to think about how to solve a problem that wasn't in the textbooks. After all, the era of magic had been taken over by memorization and theory, and that ended there. Now it is the era of combat, with quick judgment and creative thinking. The fact is, those questions weren't meant to be answered, and 1,000 students left everything blank. Of the others who tried to answer the questions, most couldn't get a single correct answer. Among the new students, only 3 managed to get all 3 questions right. The first is Ma Yuxiang, the prodigy of the century who appeared out of nowhere, of unknown origin. Flame managed to be admitted with the principal's recommendation despite being a commoner, and came close to Ma. And the third to get all 3 questions right was Beck Yuziel. The other 2 are considered geniuses, and Beck has the best entrance score among them. Even so, he surprises the professor by managing to pass the test and solve the 3 questions. The elder understands that he is interested in the student's scores because of Beck. She understands, because there were difficult equations that could be solved even without knowing anything. The professor wonders if the boy might be a genius, and she comments on the possibility that it was a coincidence. Next, he begins to analyze the protagonist's file. He reads that his admission was granted due to his ability to control teleportation at a high level. He understands that the principal personally approved his admission because he is a special mage. The professor starts thinking about the fact that he is a mage specialized in teleportation, and he wants to find out how that works soon, whether it was a coincidence, or whether he is truly special and that's why he passed the exam. In the corridors, there is a lot of chatter about the class assignments that were posted on the boards. The students are eager to see, while the protagonist is too lazy to look, because before he could see it with a click. While everyone checks the list of the classes they ended up in through the test, and is surprised by Beck. And they heard that he got 0 on the magic application test and still got into Stella Academy. The protagonist doesn't care about the complaints and wants to check which class he got into and leave. Even though he doesn't think it's that important, he is surprised to see that his name isn't in class F. He is impressed that he wasn't failed, even though he only solved 3 questions. The chatter around his name increases, and everyone thinks this is wrong, and they complain that other nobles, with far more status, ended up in worse positions than him. Seeing that something is wrong, our protagonist checks and is surprised. When he notices that his name is in class S, he is completely shocked. After all, it's the most special ranking that students dream of reaching, the place where the most exceptional students of the best magic school gather. Unlike the other classes, with many rooms, this one has only 41 students and 1 classroom. He thinks his assignment to class S was a mistake, and that he'll be seeing the main characters a lot now. He knows that getting involved with the main characters will shorten his life, but he can't change classes. He decides to do his best and keep a low profile so he goes unnoticed among the key figures. We see Hong Yil, the fire element professor, slapping a girl across the face, very irritated that she only got 3 questions right and comparing her to other students. Annoyed that she didn't answer questions that even dumber students got right, and she keeps belittling the girl. After all, she is her daughter, who listens to everything in silence. The mother continues to look at her daughter with disapproval. She hopes her daughter does not become like her, who was persecuted, expelled from the kingdom, and trapped in the position of a teacher. She says her daughter has become better than her sister, and does not want her to be a disgrace to the kingdom. Deep down, the girl does not understand why her mother does all this, no matter how much she told her otherwise. After all, she lives and handles things the way her mother taught her. There are problems in her life, made up of magic and spells she did not learn, and she wonders why her family is always tormenting her over it. Anyway, the first day of class in Class S arrives. Our protagonist feels out of place and is afraid of the place he was assigned to, while the people in the classroom gossip, thinking he should not be there. The parents of those rich kids protested the fact that he was in rank S, and the principal defended him. Our teleport hero feels completely excluded in that classroom. Those boys trained hard from a young age, and it is understandable that they got irritated at having someone stupid in the same room. He says there are cases where a person is demoted from a rank because of their performance. Thinking about that, he knows some student will move up from rank A to S soon. He finds it very strange that characters from the game are right in front of him now. In a few years, most of the students in this class will become famous worldwide. And there is the case of Ma Yixiang, who may betray the magical world in the future. Beck Yuziel hopes he can prevent that event. At that moment, moment, the Class S teacher appears and asks everyone to sit down. Lee Hanwoo begins his formal introduction. The students say he hunted more than 1,000 dark demonic humans and are impressed. In addition to being a 7th class magic warrior, he comments that there are several talented students and one very unique student in the room. He explains that, at this academy, they train combat mages and that everyone had rigorous education to get there. He hopes all students show their best during their time at Stella Academy. No student seems to have any questions, so he begins his lesson. Until the girl who was getting beaten by her mother shows up and interrupts him by arriving late. The protagonist is surprised by Hong Baiyan arriving late, even though she follows the rules closely. He wonders if something happened to her and uses the bulbul glasses to check. He checks the fire mage's profile, which says she will be a villain in the future and will die. Our teleport mage finds it strange that she already has a guaranteed death. If a cell is eliminated because of flame, Hong will go along too because of the two of them. He understands that this is the inevitable fate of a villain, just like the fire mage. He would even like to save them, if he could, but he is not in a position to do so. He feels bad watching everything from afar, but he sees no alternative. Until, at that moment, Hong Baiyan comes over to sit next to him. Baek Yuziel shifts a little to the side and lets the girl sit beside him. However, he has the feeling that things have been getting distorted from the very beginning. Before starting the lesson, the teacher comments about the staff succession to find out which one they will use at the academy, where Class S and Class A will go to the staff succession together. Our protagonist finds this staff ceremony kind of annoying, but he is eager to see it. After all, there are two major events at Stella Academy. One is the familiar contract ceremony, and the other is the staff succession ceremony. Just like the special reputation the academy has, the staff ceremony is just as special. The teacher gathers all the students at the ceremony site, saying that there are staves ranging from low class up to mid-high for them. What they need to do is pick the staff they find most interesting. Because the staff exchange process is complicated, it is better to choose just one carefully. Our protagonist knows that, in Ether, staves respond with resonance to a person worthy of commanding them. This means he cannot take a high-level staff just because he wants to. Beck stops in front of a staff and wonders which one he should choose. If it were before, he would have chosen an F-level one, and now he will think carefully, since he is in rank S. The staff that suits him best is a short-form one. Staves are divided into two classes, short-form wands and long-form staves. Wands are normally used by knights who cast fast spells. On the other hand, staves are used by priests who focus on a single longer strike. The students, gossiping, wonder which staff the commoner Beck will choose. Since he's an S-class student, he shouldn't have any trouble resonating with the staffs, they sneer. But the protagonist doesn't care much about the comments, until someone comes up beside him. Annoyed, he introduces himself as Uslek. It's the first time our protagonist has heard that name. The strange boy, never seen before, asks which staff he's going to take, saying he should go after a staff that matches his commoner status, adding that he shouldn't cause trouble for the professor. Our hero says he also shouldn't cause trouble for the professor by being such a jerk. The noble gets even more irritated and starts insulting the teleportation mage, who then asks if he wants to fight, and the protagonist notices he's the son of a marquis. After using the bulbul glasses, he only gets that information about the irrelevant boy, knowing this guy is extremely secondary and not important in his life at all. Uslek says he's going to take an extremely famous staff called Edmari Edamirai, which our hero knows must be the strongest staff in the upper middle tier. A staff like that is generally used by professional magic warriors. No matter how talented someone is, lower middle tier staffs should be the limit for students. Professional magic warriors can barely manage to hold lower middle tier staffs. However, there's another upper middle tier staff besides that extremely famous one. It isn't even a real option to choose, being there only for demonstration. The professor tells them to stand in front of the staff they're interested in choosing, so all the students stand in front of their staffs and choose them. However, they're surprised when Haewon chooses the Hayden Amikote staff, which is middle tier and famous, as well as Prince Galvin and Princess Hong, who also chose middle tier staffs. Lee wants to see how many will try to choose middle tier staffs, which only certified students can wield. The professor then says this year's students are very impressive. Uslek gets irritated and says he'll show that he can do it too, trying to choose the strongest staff. So he stops in front of the upper middle tier staff to try to resonate with it, telling everyone to pay attention. After all, he's going to show what a true genius looks like. The moment he touches the staff, a huge magical explosion happens, washing out everything. As everyone expected, he failed and falls to the floor like a slab of ham. People panic, because it looks like he was seriously hurt. Someone thinks it's impossible to resonate with an upper middle tier staff and thinks they'd better give up. After all, the owner of the staff has already been decided and will be Ma Yuziang, who walks confidently toward the artifact. At that moment, he stops in front of the item with a confident smile. The owner of the staff has been decided, and it is Ma Yuxiang, who will try to take the upper middle tier staff. Everyone refuses to believe he can hold the Edmari Edamiri staff. However, to everyone's surprise, he holds the staff, his hands emitting a lot of light. Everyone closes their eyes because of the blinding light. When the light fades, you can see a smile on the prodigy's face, who is holding the small staff in his hands as if it were nothing. None of the students around can believe the new student took the upper middle tier staff. They wonder if that's even possible, but the protagonist already expected it because he knows the story, knowing that now everyone will know how talented he is. For a few seconds, our hero thought Ma would pick on him. However, the noble only gives him a faint smile. Ignoring the situation, he comments that Flame also took an upper middle tier staff. From that moment on, our hero imagines the route split is going to happen. If Flame manages to take the Terryvon staff, the noble will become interested in her. Because of the girl's genius, the Ma Yuxiang route will begin. But if she takes another staff, a completely new route begins. That's why Baek Yuziel needs to use Flame to turn Ma into a hero. At that moment, he spots the Terryvon staff and a girl heading toward it. The girl in question is Flame, who walks cautiously toward the sacred artifact. Inside, our protagonist is rooting for her to take the staff. That way, the noble Ma will be interested in her, and the route will be different. Thus, they could have a better chance of getting a happy ending, but the girl ignores the staff, leaving our protagonist in shock. After all, he thought she was interested in Terryvon. He figures she doesn't have enough information about the staff, so she ignored it. Either way, this is bad, because Flame should resonate with any staff for being the protagonist. Man, could it be she's afraid of choosing a bad staff and losing the other good ones? By this point, he sees no other alternative but to take the Terryvon staff to her. Using his teleportation ability, he appears right behind the girl. He greets her, and she gets a little startled because of his sudden appearance. He says he wanted to know which staff the girl is going to choose. He states that he wants to help her, since she seems lost. However, the girl doesn't want help and tells him to go away. Our protagonist notices something strange. After all, Flame should be friendly to anyone and not cold like this. But Beck decides not to give up, because his life and other people's depend on it. He tells her he truly just wants to help her choose a staff. Even with her telling him to mind his own business, the protagonist tries to introduce Terryvon to her. The girl gets irritated and assumes he doesn't know anything about staffs. Beck feels that she doesn't care about side characters and tries to say that he's heard a lot about her, and he thinks she would be able to wield Terryvon. However, at that moment, something strange happens and a noise starts to be emitted. Baek Yuzio can't finish his train of thought, because something thunderous happens. Our protagonist put his hands on the upper mid-rank staff and managed to resonate with it. He is left extremely shocked, wondering why it ended up in his hand. After all, it was Flame who was supposed to get the staff, not him. Next, he cuts things short with the girl, since he picked up the staff he was going to hand to her. We see the girl, Flame, walking around the school and hearing gossip. She hears students talking about the 2 students who attracted upper mid-class wands, something that has only happened to 5 people in history, and one of the students only used teleportation in the exam. They're surprised that teleportation is basic magic and say that it's magical trash. Anyway, the girl hears the conversation and goes to the self-study hall, grateful to finally be somewhere quiet, without murmurs. After all, the topic of the day is the teleportation mage having obtained a high-level staff. The news of the 2 new students getting high-class wands spread widely. However, she can't understand what happened. She kept wondering who that boy was who managed to hold Terryvon. She read the novel several times and never saw a character named Baek Yuzio before. In the novel, no one had ever managed to hold that wand, and he did it with ease. She thinks Beck did it to try to show off to her. Flame ignores that thought until her friends show up, asking if she's going to study alone. The girl says she's not such a nerd that she'd do that, and her friends disagree. And they also question the fact that she calls everyone brats despite being the same age. Justifying herself, she says it's a habit, because she was always treated as older. Deep down, she knows she's in a present-day novel and can't act like a child. When questioned about studying, she says she has a special supplementary meeting she's going to be part of. So they agree to have coffee another day, and Flame leaves. Deep down, Flame doesn't like being part of a school with students that age. While thinking about that, she bumps into someone out of nowhere. That person is Hei Wonryang, who makes sure she's okay after bumping into her. Noticing that her expression looks bad, he asks what's on her mind. She finds her classmate's sudden concern strange and says she's fine, stating that she's going to study now, while he says he's going to the S-class training room, not being lazy. After that, there's a strange exchange of schedules between them, and Hei Wonryang puts his hands on the girl's shoulder and says he'll see her later. Deep down, Flame thinks his manner is very dry and very sincere, and she doesn't like that. At that moment, she notices a girl peeking through the crack of a door. It's Jackie, who, upon being noticed, runs off from the place, leaving her classmate confused as to why she had been there up to that moment, spying on her. However, she's very busy and doesn't go after her friend, heading straight to the supplementary meeting. According to the original novel, Acel and Hong will take part in this meeting. She wants to watch, because it's the female protagonist and the villain facing off. When she enters the room, she notices familiar faces. Noticing that all the important characters are in this room. Looking more carefully, she notes that the host is Kyle, from Class A. This is a meeting for students who want to improve their grades, and she expected that reaction from them. Also noticing that Ma Yuziang and Baek Yuziel are present there. He is considered the male protagonist of this world and is clearly interested in Baek, which she believes to be a coincidence. After all, Baek didn't solve anything beyond 3 questions from the hellish exam. She thinks he knew from the start that, by answering the questions, he would enter Class S. If Baek Yuziel already knew and was acting like this, it's because he's dangerous. That is the conclusion Flame reaches about our protagonist. Meanwhile, our hero wanted to be far away from Ma Yuziang, who tries to strike up a friendly conversation with him about his motivations. Our protagonist doesn't want to interact with him, and is only there to improve his grades. Wondering why Ma is suddenly so interested in him out of nowhere, Kyle tells them to stop the side conversations and examine the exam problems. He says there was a high difficulty problem on the exam and that they called it the 3 questions from hell. Because of that, he decided to handle one of those questions, and Kyle wants to increase his influence among the nobles. He knows this is his real chance, since Baek had the lowest score on the Class S placement exam. So, he smiles and decides to show that he's better than him, showing how to solve the first of those hellish exercises, claiming that it is, in fact, a trap designed to lead you astray. While everyone learns in this class, the novel's protagonist can't stop looking at Baek Yuziel, asking our hero whether he thinks Kyle is right. Our protagonist doesn't know what to answer, because he doesn't even understand what Kyle is doing. Not knowing exactly what it is about, he decides to be honest and admits that he doesn't know. The whole classroom stops and listens to him saying he doesn't know what's being taught on the board. However, they misunderstand and think he claimed that Kyle is solving the question wrong. Our protagonist doesn't understand why everyone is looking at him like that, while the student teaching at the board starts to get irritated by his comment, saying that, since he's doing it wrong, he asks Baek to solve the question himself. However, our protagonist is shocked, because that wasn't what he wanted. Ma Yuziang laughs at him, and the protagonist realizes he did it on purpose to test him. So, he goes down the steps and wishes this day would end soon with this embarrassing situation, passing by several students who glare at him, and he takes the chalk from Kyle's hand, putting on his bulbo glasses and getting ready to solve the 3 hellish questions, realizing that it's actually more like a test of wordplay. For example, when a mage casts a spell that asks for tears to be shed, the goal was to figure that out, and the answer was simpler than it seemed. The earth cries in a state of decomposition. Our protagonist also thinks it's ridiculous, but it was the kind of question that appeared on the test. Kyle solved it like a math problem, talking about cracked soil when it cries. The method was wrong, but he got the question right by a stroke of luck. Our hero says he can't show how it really should be solved, but he points out where Kyle went wrong. After all, the problem mentions the earth, but it could have been water or wind, and he asks whether his method would still work then. That's why he's going to show a different one. The bourgeois gets a bit angry, because Baek is going to show a completely different method from his, stating that he only got it right by luck and didn't follow the correct path to solve the question. Completely shattering Kyle's confidence, he admits he was wrong. Then, the protagonist starts teaching how to solve the question, and everyone in the room stops to listen and take notes, including Flame, who is surprised by the other students writing down everything he is saying. Acel and Hong Baiyan could argue, but they are distracted by the problem, making Flame wonder whether this is right. Ma Yuziang is eager to see our protagonist the next day. Soon, the two say goodbye with smiles and waves. Our protagonist doesn't want to get involved with someone like him in his life. Looking at the palm of his hand, he imagines it has something to do with using the phone. He doesn't understand why he caught the bourgeois' attention and doesn't want that anymore. And he finds it strange, because he wasn't interested in anyone, not even Flame. Suddenly, he sees Hong Baiyan in the hallway and wonders what she is doing there. Even though it's none of his business, he decides to go on his way. However, the girl calls out to him to start a conversation, saying she would like to ask him something, and our hero finds it strange. She calls him out for not having explained the solution earlier. Baek Yuziel couldn't explain a nonsensical test in a logical way, and thinks she got confused about something. That's why she came to talk to him. She understands that our protagonist didn't want to lay out his explanation in that environment. Therefore, Hong Baiyan says she will make it up to him for what she did, asking him to explain everything that is on his mind to her right now. So the two of them go to the library and sit facing each other with the exams, not understanding why she is paying him to explain 3 questions from the class test. Our protagonist says she only got 3 questions wrong and came to ask him, who got all the others wrong. She says she is not ashamed of that, because she feels ashamed of not having figured out the answer to those 3. As long as she can find the answer, she is willing to do anything for it. Baek asks why she asked him, since she is a princess who must have lots of friends. She says that, among all the freshmen, only 3 people got those 3 questions right, and he is one of them. Hong knows those questions were designed to make people get them wrong, and even so, the three of them managed to answer. That is why she is in a complicated situation and wants help. Our hero had not understood that they were trick questions made so no one could solve them. He thinks that is crazy and now understands why he ended up in Class S. Besides the reason Flame had been rude to him earlier, he did not know the details of how this world was built and did not even know about those questions. However, he can say that Flame is different from those other people. After all, she read the entire novel and, even though she did not play the game, she has a clear view of the world. That is why the answers to those questions were clear to her, so she recognized the existence of Beck, who was an extra and was not in the original story, and he got in her way. That was why she treated him like that before, and it leaves him thoughtful. He asks if she forgot to listen to his request as thanks for helping solve the question, while he says he has only one simple request, to trade the staff for a magic sword with her. After all, the blacksmiths of her kingdom should be able to do that. She said only low-rank mercenaries use those weapons. However, our protagonist says those weapons will match his style. Beck Uziel does not feel like explaining to her that he has no mana. Hong Bayan said she can do it very easily for him. From that moment on, he begins to explain the method to solve the first question, where he says he must use a change of perspective and leaves her confused. After all, Hong's weakness is that her magic is strictly academic, and she gets stuck on that track. However, she will only realize this in her second year, after losing badly to him. So he thinks he cannot give her those hints for now, only guide her. He asks her if she knows what a nonsense quiz is to stimulate her thinking. The girl is surprised and says she has heard of a nonsense questionnaire. Even so, the protagonist decides to give an example and asks what is between one knee and the other. Hong Bayan answers that it is the back of the knee, and he says it is the letter E. After all, between one knee and another is the letter E, and that is the question he asked? The girl gets very irritated with the ridiculous answer to that logic question. He asks her to stay calm and try to solve other questions. After all, there are formulas and techniques she does not know, and she must use creativity. Then asking if she can memorize creativity. On the spot, the girl answers that she cannot, even though knowing many spells and techniques is important. For a mage, the most important thing is to see the world beyond the boundaries of thought. After all, magic can grow from the smallest changes, but she only sees things objectively. Spells are not about memorizing and casting. Even if she is better than him at analytical thinking and judgment, she still falls short in the most important quality of a mage, which is creativity. Hearing all these truths about herself, the girl seems a little uncomfortable and tries to take it in. Our hero notices that her face has become more serious and closed off as she listens to the criticism. Hong Bayan understands everything he said, even if it is a bit complicated. Beck Uziel finds it fascinating, because he has no idea what he is talking about, and she accepted it. Happy that she understood, he decides to start reviewing the test. Next, he makes a quiz about a stone that greeted a log and what time it is. The girl says she does not know, and the answer to the quiz is 8 o'clock, because it sounds like hi log. He keeps asking several of these stupid questions that force creativity. Hong Bayan cannot answer any of them, and that starts to irritate her. Our protagonist realizes she is about to explode at any moment and keeps asking those questions, making yet another pun, and it looks like she won't be able to answer this one either, until she surprises our hero and answers correctly. The teleportation mage states that the girl managed to get this question right. This is the first time he has seen her smile, whether in the game or in real life. He says he expected that from a princess, and that her creativity is on another level. Hong doesn't want to keep being flattered and asks him to send the next question. Our protagonist keeps teaching her to develop reasoning and creativity, until night falls over the city, and we see him walking through the streets, tired, because he spent 3 hours asking Princess Hong Bayan nonsense questions, and he didn't expect her to actually believe the things he was saying. She is, without a doubt, an excellent student with a sharp mind, but her weakness is thinking too rigidly. Our mage will feel a little guilty if she really does become a villain, needing to transform the land and a magic sword soon, so that he can do more things. Beck Uziel decides to go back to buy the books he needs for class, but he starts to forget the streets and wander kind of aimlessly, until he finally finds the place he's looking for, with a very sinister appearance. Entering the place, he notices everything is quite worn down, with lots of old books. He knows the owner of the place has the strange habit of pretending to be asleep and watching customers. It's a filthy, nameless bookstore. The student named Mila, who graduated at the top of Stella 10 years ago, had her notes hidden away. At that moment, a screen would show this at the press of a button for him to watch a lesson. In real life, he needs to find a book. Not only that, but depending on the book used, the speed at which his grade increases will be different. At first, he bought books in famous places and later discovered that there are good books hidden away. For example, in bookstores like this one, and that's why he's after Mala's notes on magic engineering. That way, it's almost guaranteed he'll get a perfect score, and using the bulbul glasses, his grades also increase. At last, he finds the book he was looking for in this decrepit bookstore. However, the moment he goes to grab the book, someone bumps into him to take the same book. Seeing that the girl is Acel, trying to get Mala's notes. The boy says he knows her, because she's very famous, while she recognizes him for being in the remedial group and knows his name is Beck. However, the girl forgets that she had met him before entering Stella Academy. Acel says she liked his debate, but she wanted him to have finished the explanation. After that, the girl apologizes, with the book in hand. Our protagonist thanks her for not taking away the book he wants, wondering why a famous girl like that would be in a bookstore like this. Next, he checks the price of the book on the back cover, but he remains puzzled about why the girl is there, picking up several books. After all, this bookstore sells used books, and the people who go there are poor students like him. Because Izel's family went bankrupt, she must have no choice but to come to this bookstore. Her father was probably killed by dark demonic humans, and the family fell into ruin. It's sad for a princess to be buying used books and worrying about the price due to lack of money. As if that weren't enough, she has a very unhappy ending in the original novel, where she is killed even before Flame, who became the protagonist of this world. Beck Uziel manages to conclude that the most unfortunate character in the game is Princess Acel. Next, he goes up to the bookstore owner and sets down a stack of books he wants to buy. While the student looks a bit intimidated at him, she says he picked interesting books and didn't expect that from him. Our protagonist notices she was about to call him an idiot and feels awkward. She asks why he's reading topics like advanced stealing theory now. After all, this theory is from an ancient magic that involves the use of items, which is something obsolete in the current world. Our protagonist agrees that it's a topic that doesn't have much use in the society of alchemy and magic engineering. Even so, it's a topic he wants to read, and for that reason, he picked the books, especially because everyone thinks like her, and that makes it easier to get better grades in that class. Next, he says goodbye and takes his books, knowing that, like the princess, most people don't want to attend sealing theory classes, so he's going to take advantage and get good grades, and he won't have problems this semester. The girl is surprised by his attitude, and the day comes to an end. The next day, we see Princess Acel going to the first class on nihilism. She believes this subject is easy to get good grades in and that it won't be that bad. The classroom is full, and the smart students enrolled there thinking the subject is easy. Some people panic, and the princess knows she'll have to do her best in other classes. Some time passes, the class on nihilism ends, and all the students head to the cafeteria. The princess is tired, because there are many students in the classes she enrolled in, and it will be hard to get a scholarship. First, the girl decides to eat something before continuing her studies. However, she only has meal vouchers for this semester, and thinks it's better to eat little. She notices Beck wearing his bulbul glasses, studying hard and completely focused. Acel wonders what he is doing in that classroom, noticing that it is a class with very few students, and with questionable grades, imagining that this class is at risk of being cancelled. However, she considers the possibility of enrolling in this class to raise her grades without dedicating much time, saving time to study other subjects and earn more money for the scholarship. She wonders if Beck already knew this subject was easy to score in and that's why he is there, thinking that he planned his classes in a way that makes his life easier. However, then she changes her mind and is sure it's just a coincidence on his part. The professor in Beck's classroom assumes that everyone there knows about the origin of magic, where the white mage was the founder and responsible for spreading magic throughout the world. This is Professor Layden of the Divine Moon, explaining that the white mage taught magic to the elves of the natural class, as well as teaching a type of magic that controls matter, an elemental magic to humans, and then traveled to the heavens. Our protagonist asks how he is going to deal with all of this for 3 years. After all, going back to school is a torturous idea for an adult like him. However, he acknowledges that this lecture by the Divine Moon professor is indeed important. Even so, this class will provide a clue to the game's true ending. Even if it's only his own speculation, our protagonist believes it. Suddenly, he notices that Princess Acel has also started attending this class. He doesn't remember a main character in this classroom. However, that doesn't matter much to our teleport mage. Next, the professor says that humans' curiosity did not end with elemental magic, that human mages traveled the world and stole magic from other species. Not being satisfied, they didn't learn much more than that. The founder mage left behind 12 divine moons and disappeared, asking if anyone knows anything about these 12 divine moons. The princess says that they are guardians who protect the balance of power on the continent and are scattered across it. The professor said she is correct. They have their own special powers to protect the continent, using as an example the divine moon that symbolizes summer, being the 6th moon, the red summer, and it wielded a red flame. It was said that these flames never went out. If a person enters the deep sea of Salamanca, the red flames will still be there. Our protagonist doesn't understand. It was a kind of pun, but he doesn't find it funny. After all, if any living being enters the Sea King's domain, it will be eliminated on the spot. The professor explains that this is the coast of Levian, a whirlpool in the middle of the ocean, generated by one of the 2 divine moons of winter. They have individual powers. However, when they come together, a miracle happens, and a student asks what kind of miracle. However, the professor of the 12 divine moons says that no one knows what that miracle is. After all, these protective beings fell asleep 1,000 years ago. Our hero knows he is right and met some divine moons while playing the game. However, he only met 5 of them in limited time events. This was only possible because he gathered information from players in the community. If he is correct, the 12 moons probably have something to do with the game's true ending. The conclusion Beck reaches is that, if no one has managed to reach the true ending in the last 10 years, it's because the answer is in content no one has ever seen. That's because he only managed to meet 5 moons after risking his life several times. However, he has no other choice if he wants to see the true ending, so he will have to do all of that again, no matter how risky it is. We see Beck usual training, and a female teacher telling him that strength isn't everything. No matter how strong the attack is, it needs to hit the enemy, otherwise it will be useless. The one explaining this is the fire element professor, Hong Yil. After the advice, our protagonist focuses on hitting the target, which is a straw dummy. Thus, he casts his fire magic and hits the dummy with ease, leaving the teacher impressed, because, in fact, the dummy was not even hit. All the students look as if it were terrible. However, from behind the smoke, Princess Hong Bayan appears, becoming the center of attention. In fact, the princess was watching the training, knowing that she had shown a sad side to her mother again, imagining that she must have been disappointed in her. A red-haired girl comes to comfort the princess, asking if she is okay, praising her and saying that she is an incredible person, saying that Acel used the same magic as her, but it was much stronger. Even missing the target, the girl says that she is impressive for using such magic. To be honest, she had heard many things about the princess since she was young. Acel thinks she recognizes her as a fire mage named Arzwang. She has heard that she is a new level of genius of the fire element. She thought that, even so, she would not compare to the princess's magic. Then, she adds that the girl is good because she has great aim. Arzwang thinks that if she practices more, no one will even come close to her. Even not believing it much, the princess felt better with this conversation. Then, she leaves and leaves the girl stunned. In the late afternoon of that same day, the princess goes to a quieter place. Even so, someone finds her there and calls out to her. It is Ye Taran, Hong Bayan's personal guard, saying that she can help herself to a drink and some sweets. Talking about the budget for refurbishing the staff that she asked her about earlier. Because of the staff's quality, the magic sword will be made to a high standard. However, there is something a bit questionable. Ye Taran heard that these wands continuously keep draining the owner's mana. The princess asks if it is a demonic tool, and Ye says it resonates with the energy of nature. Acel finds it very difficult for a wand that takes the owner's mana and resonates with nature's energy at the same time, and she asks why that trash staff is mid to high tier. Her personal guard says that it is exactly for that reason. After all, the original ability can strengthen the user's mana, and the staff was high tier. However, because it drains mana just by holding it, it was downgraded to mid to high tier. Asking how she, being a student, knows this, and Ye is also confused about it. Acel thinks that most people would not be able to resonate with that kind of staff. Even if she does not understand it, she is absolutely sure that that commoner will understand, because she is sure that he is a one-of-a-kind person. A few days pass after the official start of the semester. They are having a class on attack magic, which needs more caution than other kinds of magic. Therefore, this mana orbitology class is mandatory, taught by Professor Carlium. From that day on, they will have battles among themselves to learn how to shoot and aim. At that moment, they begin to discuss the orbital formula, which is very nerdy and hard to understand. The students say that if someone does not have water as their main element, they will not be able to answer the subject's question. Our protagonist thinks they are doing it to irritate him, and end up boring him, thinking these classes are harder than the Korean classes he had in real life. Then, the orbitology professor asks him to solve an exercise. A little later, he finishes the exercise on the board, and Carlium, the professor, is surprised. After all, he solved the problem very easily, even though it was a very difficult equation. Asking whether Beck Yuzil's main attribute is water, he says no. After that, he said they would continue the problems in the next class. Our hero leaves the classroom with an absurd aura after solving that problem, and the princess says she wants to talk to Beck in the hallway, saying she has a question to ask him. Asking if she has something to say, he is impressed by it. The girl noticed something about the teleportation mage while observing him. Unlike what the grades make it seem, he is very intelligent, able to be compared with the students at the top of the rankings. She was very impressed when he went to the board and solved the exercise as if it were nothing. The level of that problem was university level, not their level. Even considering that Stella is a place for geniuses, she wants to know who Beck Yuzil really is. She thought there was no possibility, but she knows he is someone who uses a course enrollment strategy. If that is indeed the case, she needs to obtain information from him for the next class. Our protagonist asks if she's into him, and she says that's disgusting, and he agrees. Inside, he feels disgusted, because he's an adult and isn't attracted to anyone. She took a look at the classes and thinks he can get high grades very easily in all of them. Being direct, she wants to know his strategy and where he learned all that. Our protagonist says it's just a coincidence. Then he starts to leave, even with her saying this is important to her. The girl asks him to wait, but when she sees him leaving, she gets a little embarrassed. However, Acel doesn't care and shouts for him to wait for her. Beck tells her to learn that from others. After all, there are many smart people there, and he advises her to replicate what he's doing. After all, she herself said she'd been watching. The princess claims that if she goes to the classes he's in, her grade could be negatively affected. Beck knows that if she can't get a scholarship, she'll suffer a huge loss, and she's still worried about other people's grades. Even if she's slightly annoying, she's the female protagonist of the story, so she asks for a recommendation for a class that's easy to get good grades in, trying to use her cute looks to get it out of our hero, who doesn't really fall for that. In fact, she prepared compensation, because she knew he wouldn't fall for it. He doesn't understand why, at this school, students like to offer compensation. Then she asks if he knows anything about the story of the ghost of the 7th tower. Right then, the teleportation mage says he knows about it. Acel says many people don't know about it, because it's an abandoned structure that disappeared. Many barriers prevent people from getting close to where that tower is. But before he finishes hearing about it, our protagonist feels like he's going to go crazy, because it's a huge piece of information, and with it Flame increases her affection for the male protagonist. Acel knows this, because in the original novel Flame had that information, and she's aware of it. The princess is supposed to give that information only to the male protagonist, not to a background character like him. After that, our protagonist changes the subject, saying he has no interest in that horror story. She says it's not a scary story and asks if he's afraid of ghosts, and that she'll tell it anyway. However, the protagonist completely changes his attitude and doesn't want to hear her story anymore, because he knows the impact of it. Besides, it's already enough that Princess Acel sincerely wants to give him something. He tells her to choose the Abyss meditation journey as an arts subject to do well. Seeing that Beck chose Lunar Divine Studies, she asks if he's interested in cultivation. Saying that's not it, he explains that his master was a bishop, like her, and the meditation increased his magical power. The princess is surprised by that information. However, this is information that still isn't known, but for bishops who have destructive, large-scale magic, meditation becomes very important, since a spell needs many formulas and equations, but it also comes from the mind that moves mana. Normally, he doesn't tell anyone this, but makes an exception because the girl is cute. Acel thanks him and thinks it's a shame it isn't a class that will help her grades, but she'll enroll. When she leaves, Beck is surprised that he told her that and worries about the butterfly effect. However, if he abandons her out of fear, she will also die tragically in this life. He says it would be good for the princess if she took that meditation class. Thinking about it, he recognizes that he's also a mage and should train. In the game, Beck trains only his body and delays his magical awakening, ending up with only an awakened physique. In the game, you can gain experience with a simple button, and now he needs to do it by training. Everything stays quiet, because there haven't been any quests or monster hunts to gain experience, which makes our teleport mage grateful to Princess Acel. Arriving at his dorm, he notices it's extremely large. In Stella, all students live in their respective dormitories. The dorms in the game are for decorating your room, and for Beck it's all that remained after his village burned down. The dorm is divided according to the class you're in, and the size changes accordingly too. The S-class students get the highest floors all to themselves, but our protagonist feels lonely, until he starts using, in a way that calmed him, which was through meditation. Status isn't the most important thing, since he needs to get used to this body. In the game, Beck Yuziel was a genius who managed to manifest sword aura, using the fact that mana circulates incessantly in and out of him. No one paid attention to him, so no one knew. However, Beck is a genius master swordsman, the only one in the world to reach the pinnacle of swordsmanship. He needs to walk that path once again, only now controlling Beck. He knows that breathing is what coordinates the flow of mana in the body, and he wants to increase it when he inhales. After all, his skills don't level up by collecting experience. He needs to use the skill continuously to level it up and train without stopping. A good amount of time passes, and our mage keeps meditating and controlling the mana in his body. He imagines this is the same sensation Beck felt in the game. As someone who accepted mana leakage syndrome as part of himself from an early age, even though he is weak, he managed to feel that the mana leakage skill leveled up, just like his teleportation skill as well, and he celebrates that. Knowing he is one step closer to his goal, he can only be happy, determined to find the true ending, no matter what. The next day, we see Flame feeling the grass and the wind through artificial magic. After all, Stella's dimensional dome is a kind of pocket dimension on the Academy campus, which allows the size of the place and its characteristics to be freely manipulated. All events, such as dungeons, portals, and monster training, are carried out in there for that reason. A total of 141 students gather in that place now. 50 are from one room and 50 from the other, from Class A, and 41 from Class S. In the novel, it would be 39 from Class S, and maybe 40 including her. She didn't expect another person to be added and wonders where Baek Yuseol came from. After all, there were a total of 1,140 first-year students, and then she was added. In other words, it's noticeable that Baek was also in the original story. She decided to resolve things slowly and find out who he is. After all, she thinks she is the only person in the world who knows the novel and ended up inside it. Realizing that class is about to start soon, she notices they are talking with the young master Jeremy, who says he has already finished the registrations. They heard him and signed up together for the gentle magic research. The friendly boy says that all of them are going to have fun together in this subject then. The girl knows that this is Prince Jeremy, and he was obsessed with Acel and was rejected by her in the novel, thus becoming a villain. And even though he seems kind, his actions are calculated, and she wants to keep her distance from him. Noticing this, Jeremy waves at her, and Flame admits he is handsome and doesn't understand why everyone fawns over him so much. Among all the groups that exist at the academy, the princess is the most notable and full of people. Knowing this is her world now, she decides to pull herself together and prepare her future. Jeremy keeps staring at Flame for some reason. The combat magic professor is going to start the simple training before the day's lesson. He wants to know everyone's level to teach them properly, and will be responsible for the training. The professors have the right to deduct or increase points, and students can be expelled if they fall below a certain number. After giving this notice, he begins to explain the training, saying they will do a simulated training in a dungeon with real events, traps, and monsters, where they will earn 4 points if they defeat a risk level 1 monster. They will earn 8 points for a risk level 2 monster and 20 points if they get the point stick. The top 5 will receive a small reward, and students with 0 points will have points deducted. If they are afraid of being alone, they can form a team, and the points will be split if that happens. He states that if they defeat another student, they will gain that student's points. Then the professor leaves. All the students are shocked when the professor vanishes. After that information, right after that, the ground begins to shake beneath them and transform. Suddenly, the whole environment changes and becomes the Jack and the Beanstalk map, with huge trees and enormous vines. The students find themselves surrounded by enormous vines and trees. Flame also feels she should go on this mission while looking at her staff. Jackie appears and asks if Flame is going to stay alone in the practical training. The girl prefers to stay alone to earn more points in the training rather than form a team. Her friend understands that she doesn't want to form a group, because she would have to share the points among her teammates. Then she says that next time they can form a group, and they say goodbye. At that moment, she feels that people are making fun of her and trying to imitate her. She imagines that this is just a phase with her classmates, and continues on alone. An hour passes, and she faces monsters using her magic through her staff, and she wonders when the practical test will end, because it is exhausting. Suddenly, huge vines begin to burst from the ground, and she has to cast a spell to protect herself. After all, it's not just creatures, the field also attacks, and Stella Academy cannot be underestimated. She has already collected 18 points, and knows the difference between what can be done by just one person, and not in a group. She knows she has to move and keep gaining points. However, farther ahead, she senses a strange presence. With a humanoid appearance, she wonders whether it is a creature or not, until she comes to the conclusion that it is a person, and that a student can hide their presence at this level. Flame is also hiding her presence using the skill One with Nature. Her specialties are binding, destroying, defending, and healing, and she thinks it's a good idea to ambush her opponent. Noticing that the boy behind the tree is, in fact, Baek Yuseol, she realizes that he is also alone, and that he rejected everyone who wanted to be part of his group. Looking at Baek's hand, she notices that he has already obtained a point stick. Thus, Flame knows that this is the perfect chance to test him and obtain the stick. Using her magic, a set of lights through her staff, the distance between them is 15 meters, and Baek will not be able to put up a good defense at that distance. She then conjures a light bullet and hurls it in his direction. Moving at high speed, a bullet-shaped light spell almost hits our protagonist, until he notices the bullet coming toward him and manages to use his teleport to avoid the blow, surprising Flame, who did not imagine he could do that. Our protagonist vanishes completely from the surroundings after using his magic. Trembling, the princess wonders how he did it, how he was able to dodge a second-class spell at such a short distance. Right after that, we see him teleporting again to behind the girl. She wonders if she tried to take him out using the light bullet, and with his syndrome, at the higher level, he managed to escape. Now the teleport reaches 12 meters, and the cooldown time is 3 seconds. He still has 2 teleports left. He should use the terrain to his advantage to deal with her in a better spot. Next, he uses his teleportation abilities again to keep a safer distance. And he doesn't want to take too many risks, because he only wants to secure 5th place. The reward for 5th place is the ethereal roots, which increase in amount of health and strength. He knows that the top 4 spots will go to the main characters, who have already gotten several point sticks, until he comes across some people ahead who recognize him immediately. It's a group of bullies who recognize Baek Yuseol from Class S and look at him with malice. Our protagonist recognizes the man as Raiden, who has become famous at the school these last few days. As a member of Uslek and Jeremy's puppet group, seeing that he has 3 point sticks, that catches his attention. He thinks that, for someone who is a puppet, he managed to get several sticks, while they think Baek cheated to get into Class S. Raiden says the academy's quality declined when they accepted a student for getting 3 weird questions right. Next, the bully tells our protagonist to give up his stick and hand it over to him. However, Baek doesn't hand over the stick, and Raiden realizes he is resisting and seems to want to attack, asking if he thinks he can face this whole group alone, and if he will be able to use his mid to high level staff. After all, he can't use magic unless he has his staff. Baek knows that, with a level 1 teleport, it will be difficult to face Raiden, who is from a famous family. If he still had his 3 teleports, it would be easier. However, he has a variable, because he has the point stick in his hand and because the location is a dungeon. He holds out the point stick to the group of bullies, pretending he is going to hand it over, and Raiden seems to believe what Baek is doing. However, right after that, our mage teleports very close to the bully, leaving him in shock. Our protagonist smiles and attacks the bully right away. He takes the hit and gets irritated, saying he will go after Yuseol to catch him. After that, our hero disappears and reappears behind Raiden, saying that was dangerous, and he thanks him for the 2 point sticks he managed to steal from the thug, making the bully very angry and ordering him to give the sticks back. Our protagonist refuses and knows these point sticks are efficient. He learned this by coincidence. He found players playing the game, and the sticks are bugged items. Because of their high durability, they aren't destroyed by spells and have the strength of most magical tools. They're more useful for mages who use spells, and for Baek, who fights physically, he can use them as a high-power weapon. Raiden wonders how he got the point sticks at the moment he teleported and attacked them. Then he argues with his group, telling them to hurry up and catch Baek. However, at that moment, the dungeon starts changing shape, disrupting his plans. He tells his group to stay together and charge their spells so they don't lose sight of the enemy. One of them notices our hero fleeing in the distance and warns the group leader. The mages start attacking our protagonist to stop him from escaping. Even though they're better than he expected, the protagonist manages to dodge easily using his teleport. Everyone wonders where he went, and because of the speed burst, they can't find him. Having many years of experience in player versus player combat, he knows how to use the terrain to his advantage. Again, the dungeon starts changing shape and gets in the way of the group of bullies. Raiden says he's still nearby and that they should wait for the terrain to stop moving before attacking him. He tells them to be careful, because if the spell fails, there will be a magical ricochet. At that exact moment, our protagonist appears in front of them and attacks him using the very point stick he stole from him, knocking the mages back, and one of them tries to cast the spell and fails. Then the magical ricochet starts to happen, and lightning begins to fall from the sky, hitting all of them, while our protagonist teleports and knows the fight is over. Finally, Baek Yuseol manages to take the last missing stick from Raiden's hand. He says that if he gets a girlfriend, he'll give it to her as a present, making Raiden angry and demanding that he give it back, and Baek decides not to take the last stick, because it would be a hassle. Thus, teleporting once more and vanishing from the sight of all the delinquents. Raiden curses, and the mage disappears from the place through his magic, while a girl watched everything from hiding. Baek walks happily through the forest, and knows he hit the jackpot with these sticks he stole. If he had fought normally, he would have been robbed, and because it was a dungeon, things were different. However, he starts to feel a strange sensation coming from somewhere, which bothers him. Behind Baek Yuseol, a fireball begins to appear on the horizon, when, suddenly, it hits the forest, and the whole area around our hero catches fire. When that fireball devastates everything around him, he is left in shock. However, he manages to dodge using his magic and doesn't get hurt. Even so, he was almost caught by that destruction and by that blaze. But he knows that this ability came from a human who is emerging from the smoke. A woman holding a staff, who asks why he didn't take the other stick from the bullies. He recognizes the girl as Hong Bayan and wonders why she showed up and why she cast that spell. He says she misunderstood and that he didn't take the stick because he couldn't, and that it's none of her business. That she waited for him to take all the sticks so she could steal everything at once from our protagonist's hands. Even as he argues that he taught her classes these past few days, Hong says she has royal blood. Then she calls Baek to a duel, because taking objects from a commoner wouldn't be worthy of her. Our protagonist says it wouldn't be fair for her to rob someone as weak as him. Hong says she saw him toy with those bullies from the beginning, without even properly using magic to face them, and he still came out victorious. Bayan needs to be quick so she won't have problems with her mother, and must get points very fast. However, she starts to hear the sounds of people talking in the distance. They are people saying that Baek Yuseol is running away and wondering where he is going. Hong recognizes that it's Raiden's group and that the mage really is running away, and and she didn't even notice. She wonders if she should attack them, but knows that even for her, defeating 6 people alone would be difficult. She thinks it's better to wait for their fight to end and, when they're tired, she'll steal all the sticks at once. At that moment, she sees the protagonist attacking the bully from behind using the stick. Noticing that he doesn't use any other magic besides teleports to attack enemies. Even though they are much weaker than her, they were raised as elites in mage families. Recognizing that if Beck is good enough to toy with them, it's because he is very strong. She knows she'll have to use all her power to burn him because of that. So, she summons her strongest fire magic and hurls it toward our hero. He manages to make a very agile leap and dodge the princess's fire magic. However, a fire starts to break out in the forest, and he needs to be even more agile to evade it. Just as he expected from Princess Hong, it was dangerous magic, but he trained his intuition beforehand for situations like this. However, using 2 teleport spells seems like it will be difficult, so he thinks of another way. Hong Baiyan asks if he isn't going to use his wand. Beck says she stole his wand, and Hong says he must have the basic wands the academy hands out. Our protagonist forgot about that, but he received one at the entrance ceremony that he prefers not to use. Hong starts to get desperate, because the commoner always messes around like this and gets on her nerves. The princess can't even think about the other participants, and thinks about going all out against Beck. Even though she had already given it her all in this fight, she decides to push past her limits. Hong isn't going to use magic now, because she'll be able to take the boy out thanks to her anger. They face each other, while the forest in the background burns. Hong Baiyan decides she's going to finish off this commoner once and for all. The flames of her magic surge toward the boy, who is startled. They graze past him, but he manages to dodge to the side. As soon as he gets past the magic, the flames intensify, and he realizes it would have been the end for him. The blaze grows, and he knows that even if he dodges, the attack's range is far too great. He starts to wonder what he should do, until he hears a different sound. Noticing that there's something behind him he can use at this moment, teleporting immediately to that spot where the flames can reach. At the exact second he leaves the place where he was, extremely powerful flames reach it. Our protagonist realizes he got lucky, but he thinks he won't next time. Even if he gets close to Hong, the fire around her will always explode when he comes near. Beck knows this because of the countless times he lost to fire class mages. That being the case, Princess Hong Baiyan is far stronger than anyone would imagine. If it were flat terrain, he would have lost this battle in less than a minute. In fact, he can't even consider this a fight, because he's only running from her with his teleport. Again, several homing fire bursts head straight for Beck Uziel. However, he isn't going to stand still and do nothing, the way she must be thinking. Next, he jumps and starts dodging the exploding fire, leaving a trail behind him, and he doesn't stop running while the fire bursts chase him, noticing that he can see the fire bursts one by one. So, when they get close enough to him, Beck uses his weapon to deflect the magic's trajectory. Hong Baiyan thinks that's impossible, but it's the strategy he found to survive, with our protagonist's senses dulling as time passes. The feeling of moving his body to face a mage is different from playing the game through a screen. It's much more vivid. He feels the flow of mana rising as if he could grab it with his hands. His sixth sense feels as familiar as seeing and hearing, and through it, he's managing to use his weapon against the blows. This place full of trees is much more advantageous for her, since she has the fire attribute. Even so, she needs to cast even stronger magic to defeat Beck Uziel, who at this very moment is running and dodging the flames. Not wanting to stay on the defensive, he needs to use the magic batons to destroy Hong's shield. So, he starts running and approaches her from behind, seeing the fire shield that protects her. The moment he spots an opening, he sprints with everything he's got to try to hit her, using his teleport and entering inside the fire princess's barrier, which leaves her in shock. At the exact moment she sees the enemy entering inside her shield, she already prepares a spell. A skill used by fire-class bishops that causes an explosion within a 2-meter radius. Instead of panicking, our protagonist smiles, because he has experienced this many times and takes a huge step back to escape the spell's range. And then he pushes off with his foot to strike the girl's magic sphere, managing to crack her magic barrier and finally, break it for good. Hong Baiyan is startled and falls backward when her barrier breaks. Our protagonist looks her up and down, and remarks that he won the fight. The princess asks who he is, and Beck replies that he is just a normal student. Then he tells the person who is hiding to show herself already and come out from behind the tree. At that moment, we see Flame stepping out from behind the tree trunk. Flame says she was not even hiding and asks how he knew she was there. Our protagonist says it was intuition. The full truth is that it is a kind of sixth sense that detects mana leakage. Flame does not seem to believe the intuition story very much, but she lets the conversation continue. Next, she asks how he broke the princess's magic shield with the scoring stick. She asks if he did that with intuition too, and the hero knows it is a bug and cannot tell the truth. He explains that the stick is very sturdy, and Flame argues that you cannot break a magic shield with a hit like that. Flame asks why ordinary knights have disappeared from this world, and he has no argument against that. She has always suspected avoid Baek Yuziel and now asks a direct question about who he is. Our protagonist tenses up and wonders if this is how it all ends, and it has not even been a month since he got there. He only intends to say who he really is if Flame owes him a favor, because it is risky. He replies that, even if she is suspicious of him, she is not a bad person, just like him. The girl does not understand, and he says that he literally would rather help her. Flame does not understand exactly what he means by helping her. Then he starts to leave, saying he does not have time to talk right now, knowing that all he needs to do now is disappear quietly. Until Hong Bayan throws her scoring sticks at the teleport mage's head. She says that because he managed to dodge spells and traps, she thought he would catch her sticks. Sensitivity to mana leakage has its limits, and he knows he could not do anything. Sensitivity is determined by mental strength, and due to exhaustion he has a severe headache, which only got worse with the item being thrown, and the princess says that since she lost to Beck, he can take her sticks. Our hero knows that if he takes all of that, his ranking will get very high, and the other items are not useful. Even so, he picks up the sticks from the ground and decides to take only one, while she takes the rest. Right after that, he leaves for good and says goodbye to the two girls. Inside, he considers it an admirable attitude to show kindness even after defeating your enemy. However, the girls think he is a complete idiot for leaving the sticks behind, and that he is a stupid commoner. Both girls keep wondering what Baek Yuziel's true identity is. While all this is happening, three people look at a holographic map. They are the teachers watching the students' performance in the practical test, noticing that the students of Class S are all remarkable this year, and a magical elder and an advisor from the Blue Tower say it has been very enjoyable to watch the matches. From the Guild of Magical Elders to the Blue Tower Council, they are gathered to watch the freshmen's training. They are trying to recruit talent, and many teachers are also monitoring this practical training. Watching the clashes, they realize that He Wonryang ran into Ma Yuziang. They begin to fight using their wands and casting spells, until Ma Yuziang starts dodging all of the opponent's spells at high speed, using the Class 3 power leap in succession, at only 17 years old. A mage is supposed to be in their early 20s to enter the 3rd class, and Ma already has it mastered at 17. The magical advisors cannot believe it. After all, the two of them also command 3 types of elemental attributes. Normally, a mage only commands 1 type of attribute, and it takes a lot of training to master 2 elements. Certainly, mastering 3 types of attribute is an exceptional talent they were born with. Suddenly, the magical combat professor is startled when he sees something. He notices that a huge black phoenix, a secret boss, has appeared on the battlefield. It lets out a very powerful cry and begins to fly over the 2 strong students, until the enormous creature falls to the ground completely defeated. Behind it, a girl holding a staff apologizes for interrupting and defeating the monster. The magical combat professor knows that this is the student Acel Malf. A secret boss is a hidden event that appears when above-level abilities collide. It should not be easy to defeat that huge monster alone, but she did it with ease. The elders think she could have prospered more if her father were not the traitor, Archduke Malf. The mages watch the fight of the princess of Adalabit, and have never seen her opponent before. However, they are surprised when they see his spell, which is the Flash's Praise. Over the centuries, many scholars have struggled to control this ability. However, all of them failed and ended up dying or giving up, for it is a kind of magic that is completely impossible to control. But the student who controls Flash as if it were an extension of his limbs is very impressive. They wonder if this boy really exists, and the professor says his name is Baek Yuziel, a very unique student who uses Flash as his specialty. This is a completely different problem from the absurd talents of the top 3 in Class S. They question why he is fooling around instead of using other magic, and the duel could have already ended if he did that. However, someone confirms that he is really fighting seriously. That person is Eltman Eltwin, a young boy in fancy clothes, stating that he has been fighting seriously since the beginning of the fight, which is very interesting. The way he fights reminds him of the old knights of times past. He means knights of the chivalric order that disappeared along with bladed weapons. This leaves everyone puzzled, because he is an extremely young student. Chivalry refers to the spirit of knights who still wielded swords in the magical world. Since ancient times, heroes fought against evil to protect the world. They say they were always fighting with swords in hand. Although magic exists, fighting with a sword is impractical in reality, and the student uses the stick as if it were one. If Eltman Eltwin's assumption is correct, he is the headmaster of the academy considered the best magic school in the world, being a 9th class master mage and one of the continent's 10 great mages. If he, one of the greatest mages in the world, thinks so, they believe what he says. The first dungeon training has been completed, and they return to the facilities. Some students train their magic against straw dummies, as is the case with the boy He Wonryang, who realizes that his mana has almost completely completely run out by now, and he decides to conserve more mana, since there is still a long way to go in the practical test. Among the 140 students who participated, 39 have already been eliminated. Asel took first place, defeating the boss monster, and Beck came in second. Meanwhile, the genius Ma Yuxiang came in 6th place, and our protagonist doesn't even feel that victorious. The boy knows that if, at that time, Asel hadn't interfered and defeated the boss, he could have beaten Ma. Since the first time he met the prodigy, it has been like this. He was always laid back, yet producing results beyond what would be expected for a specialist. In this training, he placed magic runes in strategic locations and calculated his movements coldly. However, Ma casually blocked all his attacks as if it were easy. He wonders if he won't be able to defeat him no matter what, and whether it's possible to break through the wall of talent. The boy reflects and feels weaker than the prodigy, and decides to stop blaming himself and work harder. At that moment, the princess notices He Wenriang training with hatred and frayed nerves. Suddenly, she decides to stop beside him and use her fire magic to incinerate the straw dummy, managing, with her flames, to completely devastate the training dummy, drawing the attention of the purple-haired boy, who stops and looks in Princess Hong's direction. Hong feels frustrated about coming in third because of the point sticks, and her mother was very dissatisfied. If she hadn't taken back the sticks she had given, she would have been punished. Because of this anger, she continues to blow up the training area with her magic. He Wenriang wonders what happened to the princess for her to be so angry. Maybe it's just his impression, but he thinks her magic is more precise than the last time he saw it. The princess's fire magic has such great destructive power that subtle control of it is almost impossible. He wonders if it's a coincidence, or if she managed to improve in such a short period of time. Even though she doesn't want to admit it, the special lessons with Beck are having an effect on the princess. With the shift in focus away from pointless questions, her magical ability improved a lot. Even if, from her point of view, he is just a lowborn with low grades and a detestable personality, Hong assumes he is the only person who knows how to correct her flaws. She is still quite irritated by all of this, until Ye Terran shows up to talk to her, saying that the upgrade of the Terryvon staff has been completed. Right after that, she prepares to inform the student Beck Yuziel about it, until the princess grabs her shoulder and stops her from going after the protagonist at that moment. At the second main tower of Stella Academy, Hong went there because she wanted to find Beck, where the professor's laboratories are. However, she regrets it, because she could have gone to the training field and it looks like she is chasing a commoner. She starts to consider that maybe it is better to go back, until someone recognizes the princess and calls her attention, Professor Hammerl. They had not seen each other in a long time, since the professor taught magic at the palace to the princess, who has grown a lot. Hammerl came to Stella Academy because she had matters to take care of, and she is already on her way out. She even thinks it is better to leave soon, because the academy is very hectic that day. The magical officers are busy searching for the student named Beck Yuziel, which surprises the princess, and the professor knows that Hong faced him and found out that he does not use magic. Hong is sad for having performed poorly in the fight, in front of the master she admires most. Then she says she does not want to blame herself, because the commoner was doing his best, and she accepts the defeat. But the professor said that he did not use magic and won because of the conviction he has. She explains that the director saw a practice session and thought the student was trying to bring back a knight from ancient times. Hong Baiyan thinks her teacher's comment about the ancestral knight makes no sense, because, in fact, he used the point stick as if it were a sword during the fight, coming to the conclusion that it was similar to a magic sword of the ancient knights. Not using magic in a magic academy should be penalized even more in a practical test, which means he decided to follow this path knowing that, even after achieving an impressive feat, like praise from Flash, he continues to challenge them. There is no way not to think that this is the boy's genuine conviction. Having the dream of being a knight is a reason for ridicule, and Hong wonders why someone would become a knight in this era. Seeing that he wants to be a knight from the heart, she even asked him not to mess with her, and got very angry during the fight. At that exact moment, Beck finds the girl and is eating the idyllic roots, the 5th place reward. She says she did not go there because of that, and then hands Terryvon to our protagonist. This is the intangible sword, and it was great to ask the princess for help, because he would not be able to buy it with his money. Our protagonist is left with the box containing the magic sword, with extraordinary abilities. The girl sees the commoner's excitement, and asks if he really does not use any other magic. Our hero is confused by the question, and the girl decides to leave before hearing the answer. Thinking about it, he remembers that Professor Lee mentioned something about him not using other magic. Beck does not understand the speeches about him respecting his convictions and understanding his heart that people say to him. With the magic sword, the teleport mage thinks he will be able to handle the next episode easily, so he decides to look at this sword now and test it. Holding Terryvon in his hands, he begins to inject mana into it, producing a surprising result, which makes it grow in size and emit a lot of light. Our protagonist protagonist understands that it is better than he thought, because the sword is huge and bright. If Flame got her hands on me, this would be much more colorful, because she has a very special presence. Being a human who managed to master the magic of elves, dwarves, and angels at the same time, this staff constantly drains the user, so not everyone should be able to use it. Flame recovered mana using natural energy, and used the staff as a finishing blow. He has no mana and, even if he absorbs it, the constant leaks make him unable to store anything. The concentration of mana and his breathing will determine the power of Teravan's strikes. So he opens his attribute and status table to check how they are. Seeing that magical power leakage at level 2 increases his strength, agility, and senses. He notes that the 5th place prize from the practical activity was a bag of roots that increased his strength. Now that he has this weapon, it will be even easier to gain experience directly. So Beck decides to train how to use his sword as well and will be busy from then on. Starting today, the professor comments that they will practice real magic in class. Instructor Barayan, of defensive magic, tells everyone to take their staves. Using magical shields, he realizes that the class has excellent students and that it was good to separate them by level. Until he notices our protagonist, the famous student of Class S. Of poor origin, he is a boy who resonated with a high-level staff and placed 5th in training. This bothers the teacher, who asks why he is not doing anything in class. Beck replies that he is learning another defensive technique and does not need basic spells. Barayan becomes curious about his defensive technique and inwardly irritated, thinking that a commoner is not capable of that. Anyway, he heard that the boy does not use any magic besides teleportation, so he asks him to show this personal defensive technique to all the students, stating that the opponent will be Morso, from Class B, a pink-haired boy, with a malevolent look and an arrogant smile. To continue being a defense instructor, connections are important. That is why he chose Morso, from the Scalban Empire, and it would be great for the boy to show an incredible gap in a duel against an S-class student. At that moment, the two go up on stage to face each other. Morso Dordan, from the Scalban Empire, is laughing, while our protagonist is serious and discouraged. Everyone roots for the noble boy to defeat the commoner Beck Uziel. Our hero notices that it is Uslek and Raiden's group. Since there was no use of magic in this mandatory class, he was doing nothing, and now he will have to fight. He knows that Professor Barayan has always been famous since the first year because of his classes. He decides, then, to take the fight seriously and take the opportunity to see how his training is going. The duel will be attack and defense in 2 turns, where they will not be able to use any other magic. Morso Dordan starts attacking and already grabs his staff in his hands. Everyone bets on the noble's victory, who knows how to use aggressive earth magic and will be difficult to defend against. The teacher said they could begin the duel, and soon the rich kid already invokes his earth magic, which they recognize as 2nd tier, and the implicit rule was to use only 1st tier spells. Wondering whether the commoner boy will be okay against this attack, Morso launches his Dordan stone-piercing magic toward the protagonist, who, upon seeing the magic coming straight at him, activates Terivan, and cuts his enemy's magic using his magic sword. As he shatters the noble's magic as if it were nothing, everyone watches in shock, leaving the noble incredulous to see that his magic has already disappeared because of a slash. No one knew that cutting a spell would make it vanish like that. The defense teacher knows that Beck Uziel truly dissipated his enemy's magic. All magic has a mana flow that, if cut at the right point, makes the spell dissipate. Apparently, our protagonist managed to do that with extreme ease. Even though, for now, he can only cut Class 3 spells, Beck thinks it was worth training so much, and that he can continue this fight using this Terivan ability. The noble becomes very afraid and angry because the commoner destroyed his magic. Knowing that if Morso Dordan loses, Professor Barayan will be distressed. The rich boy admits that his defense is good and says that this technique will only cut 1 attack at a time, with a limit. If several attacks come, he thinks the commoner will not be able to defend and starts to smile maliciously. Our protagonist gets irritated because the enemy talks too much and then notices several strikes coming at him. His enemy conjured several mana-filled rocks with his wand to attack him. The people watching this fight think this is excessive and that it will hurt the other student badly. As soon as he casts the spell with an evil smile, they think the teacher should stop the fight. This spell is Buller's Stone Piercing, which goes straight at the teleportation mage. Our protagonist is frightened as he sees the magical stones approaching in his direction. In total, there are 11 stones flying toward him, and there is no time to teleport or cut them. So what remains for him is to block them all, which is what he tries to do using Terivan. Seeing that the commoner Beck Uziel managed to block them, the noble becomes irritated, because his best spell was destroyed easily, and the enemy blocked it with his sword. The teacher gets angry because, if Morso loses, he will be screwed as well. Our protagonist used ventilation, which is a technique he saw in another game, and it worked. It takes much more strength to maintain Terivan's form, so he becomes exhausted after that. Besides that, the defense becomes weaker than against a single attack, which is bad for a real fight. At least, he will only use this during this training. The students notice that this is almost like a magic shield and wonder how he developed this defense, while the rich boy Morso gets irritated because it looks like he is going to lose the fight. Seeing that he is being humiliated in front of everyone by a commoner, he begins to cast a spell. Even though his turn to attack is already over, he prepares another spell to hit the enemy, shouting that he won't let this slide and, in a fit of rage, he wants to finish Beck once and for all. At that moment, Jeremy appears and draws the professor's attention, who should be giving the attack turn to Beck Yziel now. The students see that this isn't a basic first-year duel, and that it could end with someone getting hurt. The professor ignores the students' reactions, who are angry at him because he made the duel unfair. Jeremy calls him out, and under pressure, he decides to give the attack order to the commoner. In a matter of moments, he manages to win the duel and knock Morso to the ground, without him being able to defend himself. The fight surprises everyone, who didn't expect him to be that incredible. Jeremy smiles when he sees the commoner subduing the noble like that. In a fancy hall, we see someone being attacked. They fall to the floor, covered in tomato sauce, and Jeremy was the one who attacked them. Saying that his friend got pretty badly hurt, he asks someone to take care of him. That person is Verazane, a girl tasked with taking care of the injured man. In the Scalvan Empire, where magical ability defines everything, Jeremy Scalvan became the crown prince at 12, surpassing all his siblings. Saying that he isn't a servant means the Dordan family was expelled from politics forever. Verazane knows it's not only Morso who, after being noticed by the prince, had his life made difficult, but also now the commoner Beck Yziel, who was noticed by him, is going to have a hard school life. The next day, we see several students wearing lab coats in the magic laboratories. Everyone comments about our protagonist wanting to become a knight and having defeated Morso Dordan in the duel. Everywhere Flame goes, she hears about Beck, even though she doesn't want to be the center of attention. The alchemy teacher says that this class requires exact measurements and impeccable temperature control. Mei Zintiran asks them to practice the fatigue recovery potion she developed. Flame finds this very irritating, because if you mess up one thing, everything goes down the drain. Alchemy is very complicated for her, and the girl would like to avoid these classes. Professor Mei Zintiran scolds several students who are getting basic things wrong. Flame has already heard that this teacher will become a necromancer in the future and cause chaos. To prepare for that, Flame has no choice but to keep attending this class. Suddenly, she looks to the side and notices our hero making potions and laughing in a strange way. She thought Beck was only in this class to get closer to Acel, but now she thinks he's crazy. Deciding to grab her materials and leave this lab as soon as possible. Some time passes, and she manages to finish the potions, because she has an ability that helped her do it quickly. Right when she finishes, she starts looking for Acel and realizes that she's doing well in class. She remembers that, in the original story, she finds Mela's notebook of magical machinery notes, and makes an improved version of Tyran's fatigue recovery potion in this same class. This makes Flame wonder why the girl is making only a normal potion now, until she hears the teacher saying that Beck Yziel swapped the experiment's ingredients. Our protagonist assures the teacher that the result is better with other materials. Mei Zintiran, angry, states that this isn't the fatigue recovery potion she told them to make. Flame doesn't think it's possible that the superior potion Acel was supposed to make is the one the commoner made now. She knows something is strange, because Beck managed to make the superior potion in Izel's place. Mei Zintiran says that this makes no sense and that the commoner's attitude is horrible. That line, originally, was supposed to be about Princess Izel's ruined family, which became a trauma for her, because she lost her family and it haunted her until the end of the game. Flame thinks Beck knew that, and made sure he was the one to get scolded by the teacher to protect her. Mei Zin has a lot of influence at Stella Academy, and once you're marked, your grades in other classes would be affected. This makes Flame wonder why the boy is doing all this for Acel. Meanwhile, Professor Mei Zin reprimands him, and says she'll have his parents called because of the way he answered her. Our hero was so focused on alchemy that he forgot about this annoying outcome, and replies that he doesn't have parents. Knowing he's already been marked, the teacher is shocked to hear that he has either parent. The next day, our protagonist is going to try to make a kimchi potion with another portion of glue. A few weeks pass since that incident, and in the same lab, Beck gets scolded again. The teacher complains because he is using materials she does not allow, and Beck says the potion turns out better that way. When he argues that, Mazen gets even angrier with our hero, who, using his bulbul glasses, notices her corruption toward dark magic increasing, knowing that things are going according to what he had planned. After all, this is episode 8, the boss of black corruption, Mei Zintiran. Unable to overcome her dark emotions, she became a villain who succumbed to black corruption. When the corruption progress passes 90%, she transforms into a monster. It is not possible to detect the progress if it is below 50%, and he knows it is at 21 because of the glasses. There is no way to prove that she uses dark magic, nor to report her, because that would provoke it until she reaches 50%. If it were ordinary corruption, there would be a way to reverse it before she transformed completely. However, Mei Zhen made a contract with dark magic of her own free will. The seed of that magic is already growing inside her, and there is no way to reverse it, only call the extermination team. The 4th episode has not even started yet, but she is a very strong boss, and he already starts preparing. After all, she can turn other students into dark magic users and threaten Stella Academy. Seeing our protagonist's bad behavior, she says not to expect good grades in her alchemy classes. He considers that good, because by drawing that attention, he avoids additional damage. In fact, he never thought the practical test for alchemy class would be in groups. This causes a headache, and Beck notices the atmosphere is very bad, because nobody wants to work with him. The other members introduce themselves, and one of them is Acel Malth. They think the team is screwed, because the teacher will lower their grades for disliking Beck Uziel. However, Acel thinks they cannot give up because of that. The practical test will have at least 3 alchemists from Alchemancia to evaluate them. That being the case, Professor Mei Zhen cannot ruin the grades on her own whim. This sinks in with the students, who decide to work hard to earn a good grade. Even our protagonist is happy with the girl's motivating speech. The vitality potion will not be a difficult task if they combine what they have learned, and they need 2 ingredients. Beck volunteers to get the fire-maned lizard tail, which is a main ingredient of the potion. Acel warns that he needs to bring it very fresh, because monster corpses are essential in alchemy. She decides to trust the commoner, because he has a completely confident look. Our protagonist is going to bring a fire-maned lizard straight from the source. At a certain moment, the teacher calls a student to talk in private, asking him to distribute a note to the students in the first-year alchemy group, except for group 12, which is the teleporter mages group, which she wants to sabotage. The practical alchemy test will be carried out in front of professional alchemists, so if they embarrass themselves in front of them, their career as an alchemist will be over. That is why Professor Mei Zhen wants to make Beck Uziel regret challenging a teacher. On the S-class training field, Flame is there with her staff. The messenger student delivers the alchemy class note to her, demanding that she not tell any other student. Flame understands it is only meant for Beck Uziel's group to be harmed. However, she does not intend to stay quiet about what she read in the note. Reading that the potion was changed to a Tyrann point potion, not a vitality potion, Flame thinks that if Beck knows the original story, he will prevent this incident, getting an Adderix spider carapace for the Tyrann point potion instead of the fire-maned lizard tail. Deciding that this will be the perfect chance to test our protagonist, our protag teleports using the hall and feels dizzy afterward. At that moment, a young woman welcomes the teleporter mage to Deribble. He explains that he is not an official mage and is only a cadet, but he is already treated like an official mage. The mages there notice the Stella Academy uniform and become envious of the cadet. The young woman says that if he needs help, he should just look for her, and the protag continues on his way. He is treated like an official mage anywhere just for having an exit pass and a Stella pocket watch. Not to mention that their teleport hall costs 100,000 credits, but cadets use it for free. Thanks to that, he used the teleport hall on weekends to visit nearby cities, with the aim of confirming most of what he already knew and remembered because of the game. So, he arrives at the place where the objective is to find a fire-maned lizard, a level 2 threat. Knowing that it is a bit stronger and more common in terms of endurance and strength, it has magical defense and moves fast, so a class 2 spell is needed to catch it. When he hunted class 1 monsters, he handled them without difficulty, so he thinks he can manage class 2. Sensing a presence in the area, he immediately draws his Terrivan and knows the monster has arrived. He stays on alert while the fire-maned lizard tries to attack him from behind. However, our hero has a sixth sense, which lets him see the strike coming from behind him. Thus, he manages to eliminate the monster with his magic sword before being hit. In a matter of moments, the young man can no longer react and falls to the ground, out of strength. The huge monster is lying on the ground, and the protagonist comes out victorious, saying he managed to hunt the first one, until he notices 3 other lizards just like it approaching to attack him. He smiles, grips his magic sword, and states that it is time to collect the potion ingredients. He hands the material to the girl, who notices it is very fresh. Acel says that Beck Uziel has a good eye for ingredients. She says that now all that is left is to make the potion the right way. So the whole team, optimistic, begins to help her in the process. Then it is time for the presentation of the assignment for Professor Mei Zhenturen's class. The test will be carried out in front of the official alchemists, and if they do well, they will have a future as alchemists. Mei Zhen begins the activity and announces that the task is to make a Tyrann point potion, type B. She asks if everyone brought the ingredients, and Beck's group is shocked. Acel tries to complain, saying that the potion that had been requested was Vitality D. The teacher confirms with the students that she announced the change of potions, and everyone agrees. Our hero gets irritated by the teacher's attitude and does not want his classmates to do poorly on this test. He tries to remember the original story and exchanges glances with Flame. She finds it strange, because she thought Beck knew the original story and could avoid this. They complain to Acel for having brought the wrong ingredients. The teacher says that if she wants to be an alchemist, she cannot confuse ingredients. When Mei Zentiran is sure that Group 12 will fail, someone interrupts her. Our hero asks if he only needs to make the Tiran Point potion and states that he will do it, even with ingredients different from the teacher's, and with better performance than her potion. The official alchemists begin to whisper, impressed by his attitude. Our protagonist knows that the main ingredient in this potion is the shell of the Adirex spider. The shell of these spiders is full of nutrients, and the Tiran Point potion is revitalizing because of that. However, it is risky for him to try to make a revitalizing potion with fire-maned lizard tail. The teacher doubts him, and knows she will end his alchemist career in front of everyone. She warns that the time limit is 1 hour, and allows him to try to make the potion. She demands that he complete the Tiran Point potion within that time. His group thinks he is crazy, even though he is good at making potions. Beck Uziel says that since they are there, they should try and ask them to keep trusting him. He thinks it is better to try to make a different potion than to be graded poorly anyway. He motivates his group, who become optimistic and agree with him. Then our hero begins to explain how this task is going to work. During the time he played the game, alchemy was one of his greatest passions. Our hero wrote down every recipe, from the simplest to the most complex. Among them, of course, was the recipe for the Tiran Point potion B. It was a recipe that the future Professor Meizen would invent, so he did not want to tamper with it. In the present, he explains to the group that the spider's shell is nutritious because it is used to incubate offspring. The fire-maned lizard's tail has a similar organ, located in a specific blood vessel. A desert tribe used that vessel to strengthen the chief's health, and their life expectancy increased. One of the people in the group says they understand that tribes all care processing and want to help. Our protagonist is going to dry the mistletoe using the magical drying method, and one of the boys knows how to do that. Acel said she will handle the processing of this part of the magical drying. Soon, the whole group is absorbed and focused on making this potion. Our hero realizes they are doing much better than he expected. Finally, they will combine the ingredients the way he explained and make a very similar potion. They leave the teacher in shock when she realizes they managed to make the Tiran B Point potion. None of the alchemists believe they really managed to do it using a lizard tail. The teacher gets irritated, because this potion was invented after years of research, and they made it easily. The alchemists then do the verification to see if the potion is correct. When they run the test, they realize it is a little imperfect, and that there was some waste of ingredients. However, this potion performs much better than Professor Meizen's, leaving the group of youths happy and being praised for their excellent work. However, the teacher gets very irritated and takes the potion to check it herself, having no doubts that this potion uses the technique of converting monster nutrients into vital energy, concluding that, from every angle, this is a perfect Tiran Point potion, being left in shock and wondering how they managed to create a product better than hers. Even so, she is the one who will give the grade and intends to sabotage them, thinking of disqualifying the group due to the lack of ingredients. Thus, the group of alchemists says that Group 12 deserves the best grade for the task. The teacher is pressured by the elder alchemists, and Group 12 ends up being approved. Our heroes are happy about it, while the teacher continues to harbor a lot of hatred for Beck. As her hatred for Beck increases, the black corruption also grows inside her. Some time passes, and we see the students of Stella Academy training their magic. Flame thinks it is hard to go back to studying at her age, and that she is too tired for it. A group of girls says that Ars Wang is doing better than the princess herself. Everyone said that girl was a prodigy of fire magic. Even with her having spent years training, the princess is already almost surpassing her control. When she hears that, she is startled, because Hong Baiyan's control should improve in the second year, not now. Wondering if this is also Beck Yuziel's fault. When she stops and thinks, she finds it strange what the mage did in the practical alchemy test. The point potion was a combination of what the future Acel discovered and what the teacher stole to complete it. Even without knowing that part of the story, Beck managed to make a recipe that did not exist before. Flame finds it strange that he has knowledge of the future, and yet does not know the original story, questioning whether he is not a possessor and is, in fact, a regressor. If he came from the future, he could know more events, and does not remember all the incidents that happened with Acel. Because, in the original story, Ma Yuxiang had a chance to regress once. The only being in this world that has power over time is Yun Sipawal. While Flame thinks about what this entity can do, someone interrupts her. The girl asks what He Wenriang thinks of Beck, and he says he is a very peculiar student. She tries to get some more of an answer from the prodigy boy, but he has no further opinion on it. When He asks whether Flame has concerns regarding Beck, she confirms. She gives no more details, but she knows the reason is that Beck knows the story just like she does, coming to the conclusion that it is not good to keep dwelling on it. deciding to speak directly with the teleport mage about what she thinks of him. Hei Wonryang thinks it is a strange idea for her to say everything to the student's face. Flame thanks the boy for listening to her the day before. However, the noble boy has a strange look after she leaves. A day passes, and we see our protagonist in the cafeteria. He knows that Mei Zentuan's corruption is at 37% and that, in 3 months, something will go wrong. Her black corruption will affect a random student, and there are 3 candidates for that. Jackie, Flame's friend, Arzwang, from Hong Baiyan's group, and Hei Wonryang, from the Full Moon Tower. If Hei Wonryang is affected, it will be the worst scenario of all. In the game, this was something rare, because corruption in him leads to a very bad ending that requires a lot of caution. While he thinks about the most likely scenario, Flame appears and leaves him pensive about it. She arrives asking who he really is, since last time he did not answer her properly. Our protagonist gets irritated by this question, because it puts him in a difficult situation. Telling the truth and obtaining information increases his chance of reaching the true ending, and he decides to try. When he tries to tell the truth, a warning appears that his narrative is incomplete, where he cannot tell this person that he is a possessor. He cannot share the knowledge and information he has with this person. Seeing that the system started to freeze, he says there are secrets he cannot reveal, and Flame agrees to reveal only half of them. To begin with, the girl asks if he can see the future. Seeing that she got straight to the point, he deduces that she can also see the future. Firing back with a question about her objective at Stella, Flame says he is trying to save the world. So, she decides to ask another question, about the way he acts. Even without really understanding the question, Beck decides to answer, saying that he thinks this is the best way to act under these circumstances. However, the answer is not enough for her, and she tells him to stop lying. She does not believe he is a good person, and thinks he must be trying to gain something from this. Our protagonist says he wants nothing, and does not even know what he would want, stating that he just wants to live without thinking too much. Seeing this strange answer, she apologizes for being rude, and she soon says goodbye to our hero, before he could ask another question, until Hei Wonryang appears very angry, confronting Beck Yuziel, asking why Flame left in tears. He does not intend to leave the boy alone, and our protagonist knows he is in love with Flame. To avoid any misunderstanding, he says that nothing happened between him and Flame. Seeing Hei's negative reaction, he states that there is nothing different about their relationship. Hei Wonryang accepts this answer and apologizes for the invasive questions he asked. Our protagonist finds his behavior strange, because he is usually cold and calculating. This starts to worry our hero. Acel cannot concentrate in class, because she has a question on her mind that she wants to ask the teleportation mage, asking whether he came up with the combination he used earlier in the potions. Our hero says he created that recipe in parts. The girl has always considered herself a genius, and if he kept this up, he could defeat her. Because of that, she pushes herself hard and thinks about what she did wrong this time, knowing that this way, she will not be able to avenge her father. Her father was branded a traitor and taken to the gallows because of it, by the cruel and disgusting members of Adalabit, whom she wants to take revenge on. Deciding to work even harder to do that, Flame wakes up in the middle of the night, is bothered by the room, and would rather have a sweet just for herself. She remembers Beck telling her that he had no goals and knows that he went back in time. In the original ending of the novel, Yun Sipawal told Ma Yuziang that time can be reversed. However, you lose the memories of the reverse time and, after the mission is completed, you disappear. No one in the world will remember that this person saved the world. Not even the people who were loved by the hero will remember him. Even so, there are people ambitious enough to go back in time and try again. It seems that some heroes accepted that this is their fate. The one who truly stopped Ma Yuziang in the original story was Acel, telling him that she would rather accept destruction and remember him than live in a world without him. After that, Ma Yuziang gave up on going back in time because of her persuasive words. Because of that, the world was destroyed and the epilogue came to an end. This story is different from the original, because Beck went back in time instead of Ma, with Yun's power. Therefore, Beck will disappear when he finishes the mission and will be erased from this world. Flame imagines that he lost most of his memories, only has a sense of duty, and simply lives. This motivates Flame, in some way, to act. As she gets out of bed, her friend warns her that Hei Wonryang came to see her. He is waiting for her on the first floor of the dormitory, and Flame does not want to see him, because she just woke up. She does not want to see him in this state, and tells her friend to send Hei Wonryang away. Some time passes, and Flame's friend goes to meet the boy in the middle of the night. Soon, he asks about Flame, and her friend says that she could not come. Hei wonders if she is sad about being rejected by a loser, who is Beck. With this news, he decides to go back to his room. The girl realizes that Hei does not even know her name, even though she likes him very much. She feels jealous of Flame, because she has always had extraordinary talent and everyone's attention, also managing to win the heart of Hei Wonryang. This makes the friend feel a lot of anger and envy. In the main tower, Professor Maizen gets scolded for having embarrassed herself in front of the students. Aki Hayden, the academy's vice principal, says that expectations for her are high. Maizen says that the study of flows she is conducting with the church's doctors is going well, and the vice principal says he is counting on her to do it. As soon as she leaves his room, Aki can't contain the anger he feels toward her. She is a woman blinded by fame, who doesn't even realize she's being manipulated. He finds it ridiculous that a warrior, who should be fighting demonic humans, is benefiting them instead. With malicious intentions, Aki awaits the day when the black techno-magic will be completed. A woman carrying a stack of papers is helped by our protagonist. She thanks Beck, because Professor Maizen would scold her again because of that. Our protagonist notices that Maizen Tyran's classroom is in absolute chaos, until he notices an alchemy diagram on the blackboard. The girl explains that it's a formula the professor was researching with the doctors. They call this formula the intersection of random flows, and it catches the protagonist's attention. After all, this is the first formula of black techno-magic. In the episode of Maizen's corruption, the demonic humans helped her finish the formula. The technological gap ends up causing great damage. However, the situation changes with Altharisha's appearance in this story. She could decipher the formula before the demonic humans and the professor. Altharisha, the assistant, invites our hero to have a coffee with her. Beck asks whether Maizen annoys her when she bullies her, and the assistant finds the question strange. He asks what she would do if she had the opportunity to carry out a perfect revenge. She says she's just an assistant, and getting revenge won't help, and she would lose her job. Our protagonist suggests that she become better than Professor Maizen Tyran. That way, no one will look down on her or belittle her anymore. Hearing that, the assistant likes the idea. Beck knows that Altharisha is tired and no longer wants to stay in a dusty storage room. She had a dream of becoming an alchemist and creating inventions as she pleased, and she also has the talent to achieve that dream. Our protagonist knows this because, in the future, she becomes the most brilliant alchemist of this era. She will produce countless items with only her brilliance and her original ideas. However, now she has to set her dream aside because she's discouraged by everything. That dream, our hero will try to help her achieve soon. Around the end of Stella's first exam, he continues to visit the assistant. She would get excited to know that he thought the same way about experiments and magic. Our protagonist gave her various ideas to keep her passion for alchemy alive, noticing that Altharisha's inventions were increasing without any issues. However, there was still a missing step in that formula. Knowing he needs to get the assistant to the solution before the professor, it won't be easy. Suddenly, someone stops in the hallway and asks why Beck Uziel has been so distracted. Flame says that if he keeps spacing out like that, he'll even get beaten up. The girl calls him Uncle, thinking he's actually old, and he gets irritated. Our hero realizes she's talking to him more often than before, and that's strange. He then decides to bring up one of Flame's friends, Jackie, when the girl starts implying that he wants something weird with that friend. Our protagonist says that's disgusting and asks her to take good care of him. He says Jackie might not be well right now, because he was affected by dark erosion, and may be in a bad state. Flame is going hunting with him on the weekend night, and will take care of it. When he hears about hunting season, he knows the outcome is obvious. After all, the Martivus Cemetery will be where the 4th episode begins. All the main characters will participate, including Ma Yuxiang, Flame, and Azel. A big battle will also happen against a level 5 necromancer. Beck doesn't want to get involved, but if he obtains the secret reward, he will help with the contract ceremony with the familiar. He submits a leave request to the magic class professor. The professor reads his request, which states that it's not possible to learn swordsmanship or cavalry at Stella. Looking at the desk and noticing a leave request from Ma Yuxiang, which he wants to look at, he comments to the professor that many students are leaving to hunt as a club activity, where they go to the Martivus Cemetery. Ma and Hei Wonriang have very high grades and are hardworking, but Ma isn't going hunting, he's going home instead. Hei is going along with Flame, and the protagonist is shocked, because without Ma, they can't face the necromancer. Beck knows he wouldn't go home without a specific event, and they won't be able to defeat the level 5 necromancer without him. However, since he has no solid evidence to ask for reinforcements, and, due to narrative constraints, he can't leak information. Even so, he doesn't want to let his companions be eliminated. Determined, he thinks there's no other way to do it unless he goes and handles it personally. After a few days pass, we are at the Martivus Cemetery. We see several students testing their magic and fighting monsters there. Dok Chio-guang, a second-year student, has just faced a predatory fish with great ease, until another second-year student says he didn't hear the captain's orders and that he can't destroy everything. The two start arguing, while Ban Dian, a second-year student, gets tired of their fight, telling Isel that she doesn't need to worry about those idiots. They are annoyed at being insulted in front of a freshman. Ben came along because she wanted a spot in the club with special outings and notices that the people there aren't the same anymore. At that moment, she calls her friend Isel, and a huge boom happens behind her. The girls get startled and notice that someone is fighting fighting near them. Bandayan Sunbae confirms with her captain that they can't invade the hunting ground of other groups. They start heading to the place to inform the other group and clear things up. When they get closer, they notice two famous people, Hong Bai-yun and Flame, facing each other, looking like they're about to fight. Flame tells the girl that she took down the predatory fish first. However, Hong argues that she was in the hunting area, so it belongs to both of them. Ban heard that the fish is a level 3 risk monster, hard to find, and the two are fighting over hunting performance, and Isel intends not to get involved. Besides, she doesn't want to run into Hong Bai-yun, the sister of the man who killed her father. Because of that, she decides to leave as quickly as possible, until someone draws the freshman's attention. He thinks they should talk to the upperclassmen if they have problems, and the two girls prefer to keep going their way, saying that if he's an upperclassman, he should act like one. However, that offends the man. While they argue, the ground begins to shake, and only the girls from the other group notice it immediately, feeling a very strong energy, and skeletal hands come out from under the earth, leaving both groups shocked at a huge number of skeletons emerging from the cemetery ground. There is a warning on one of the tombstones saying that they must not enter the place alone. In addition, a system notice says that skill experience is increasing, and attribute experience as well. Our protagonist says he would like to use magic and thinks his teleport ability is useless. Baek Yuzil feels it's time for the necromancer to appear and starts looking for him, until he finds a different tombstone and begins to approach it. He doesn't have strong abilities to wipe out the skeleton army, nor overwhelming strength like Ma Yuxiang. However, he knows there is a way to survive, fighting like a player. So, he stands in front of the tombstone with the magic sword, and episode 4, the necromancer's attack, begins. Something starts to come out of the ground in front of our hero. Beck realizes it's the skeleton general, who commands the other hundreds of skeletons. A sub-boss level monster that only appears 3 times in this episode. With his current level, he would end up dying at some point if he faced the skeleton general. So, he isn't thinking of fighting this monster in the usual way, starting to hit the monster on the head and sending it back into the earth. When someone transforms or is summoned, the rule is to watch in silence, but the protagonist isn't going to stand still and get caught. Thus, he manages to turn the monster into a complete spinal staff, and the commands given to the skeleton general are under our hero's control, who, after turning it into a staff by hitting it on the head, decides, admitting to himself that he underestimated himself a little. We see the group of second-year youths in trouble, facing the crowd of skeletons. Flame knows this is the necromancer episode, but she feels something strange. If she's right, the one who resolves this episode is Ma Yuxiang. This makes her wonder why Isel is with another group and why the story's protagonist isn't there, wondering if they'll have to face the level 5 necromancer with this weak group. The team captain sent a distress request to Stella Academy with his pocket watch. The group will only hold off the skeletons until the professors arrive, even without defeating the necromancer. Hong Baiyang grabs her staff and says they can't stay this calm. After all, it's a cemetery, and the more time they spend there, the more skeletons will appear. She says they should return to camp. Meanwhile, skeletons attack the defenseless girl, who is saved by a water spell that hits the skeleton squarely and stops it. A spell that was cast by Isel to help her friend. A student praises her and comments that the necromancer came prepared and must have created a power vessel. A power vessel is a technique in which the necromancer infuses his mana and stores it steadily. He has a mana limit. If he summons 3 RD and 4th level skeletons, it will be hard to keep summoning more than a dozen for long. However, he managed to dominate a very vast area and must be a very strong necromancer. A student says the skeletons are gathering and thinks this was planned a long time ago, imagining that the necromancer wants to kill them and turn everyone into skeletons. Because he is the vice leader, he decides to use his most powerful magic and wipe everything out at once. However, at that very moment, the boy is grabbed by the foot by a skeletal hand. He is shocked and starts screaming until his friend punches the skeleton to save him. Since he was in the middle of casting and took a hit, there will be magical backlash. Thus, several magical bolts begin to spread across the area. The girls know that if it explodes, their side will be hit too. And it doesn't take long for what she said to become true, and the whole area suffers from his magical backlash. We see Flame facing the crowd of skeletons and reaching her limit, complaining that the situation isn't good, because her mana is running out and there's no time to recover. Besides, there are still many enemies left to face. One of the zombie skeletons lunges at her aggressively, and she gets scared, starting to wonder if she's going to die in this place, until one of them gets very close and suddenly stops. Not just one, but all the other skeletons suddenly stop moving. Behind them, the teleport mage begins to appear, walking among them with a cold look. Flame wonders how he got there and notices the skeleton general. The skeleton general is much stronger than an ordinary monster. It should be escorted by elite monsters. The girl wonders how Baek Yuzil managed to capture the skeleton general alone. She can't believe it, but it's the only way she's getting out of this situation alive. The whole group thanks the teleport mage for saving them, and Isel asks how he managed to capture the general alone. He says he fished in a bone soup and doesn't mention that he camped at the spot where it would be summoned. He decides to make a plan, because the necromancer can ignore the general and control the monsters directly. Our protagonist saw the necromancer taking over the surroundings of the camp, which makes it impossible to break out of the encirclement. So the only way is to take out the main body. The whole group hears this and is completely shocked, thinking he's crazy. Beck explains that the necromancer is strong in magic, but not in hand-to-hand combat. Even though it's dangerous because he may have monster troops, the only way is to attack the summoner. The necromancer's force consists of 1 general, 6 elite skeletons, and 50 common ones, and it will increase over time. That's why he wants to act now, and he has to find a way to convince the group. However, to help him, the girls in the group say it's possible, saying that the necromancer won't expect a direct attack and, even if he's experienced in combat, there's still a chance. The group can't split up and leave on their own, so they'll have to cooperate and follow Beck's plan. Doing all of this before the necromancer notices and the number of skeletons increases. We see the necromancer in a mausoleum, saying he got lucky to find Stella Academy freshmen. The Black Alliance won't look down on him anymore if he turns the students into mage skeletons. Sabi Hayek is a 5th level necromancer of the Black Tower. For 7 years he has been accumulating mana in the power vessel, and there are 700 sleeping skeletons in the cemetery. Knowing that now no one will dare disrespect him because of his power. However, he suddenly feels that he has lost control of his senses and that the skeleton general has been captured. Out of nowhere, a magical attack comes from behind him with a great flash, startling him. A pile of bones rises from the ground, and he notices that it's his 4th level bone barrier being cracked and attacked. Being utterly shocked when fire magic blows up his 4th level bone barrier, realizing that he underestimated the students and didn't imagine they would come to attack his main body directly. Even if they're just freshmen, Stella Academy is the most prestigious, and he becomes a little afraid. He wouldn't like to use this method, but if he keeps facing these students, it will be risky. So he decides to summon the elite skeletons, biting his finger and summoning them, shouting for the skeleton soldiers to come to him. And, at that very moment, the elite soldiers begin to rise from the ground, monsters of black bones and malevolent features. At that same moment, the necromancer starts spitting tomato sauce, realizing he suffered internal damage from forcing the summoning of skeletons. However, he thinks that amount will be enough to finish off the students and orders them to attack. Some time passes and, already weak, Sabi Hayek realizes that the elite soldiers are fighting well. However, what he did not expect was the teleportation mage appearing behind him at that moment. Asking who he is, the one holding the staff with the skeleton general, our protagonist confronts the necromancer head-on, who is completely shocked by his presence and asks who he is and where he came from. After all, he was monitoring the student's position through the skeleton's eyes and didn't see him, until he notices the staff in his hand, with the body of his skeleton general. Then, he throws it to the ground and breaks the skeleton general, which hurts the necromancer, who starts spitting ketchup and confirms that he underestimated the young student, noticing that this is the power of Stella Academy and its students. However, our hero realizes that things are not going the way he planned. The right thing would be to deal with the general and then help him, but the others can't even move because of so many skeletons, wondering if he'll have to fight alone, being the weakest in the group, or if he should run away. However, he notices that the necromancer isn't in good health either, and that makes him feel more at ease. After all, since he forced the summoning of the elite skeletons, he ended up injured. At that moment, our protagonist smiles and realizes he has a chance to win this fight. Meanwhile, the girls are being cornered, and they need to defeat the skeletons quickly to join Beck Yuziel. Another girl shouts to the princess that they have a problem. That problem is the teleportation mage, who is facing the necromancer alone. With the teleportation mage being 1st level and the necromancer 5th level, there's no way it can be a fair fight, according to them. At that moment, a huge purple lightning bolt strikes in the middle of the battlefield, and the princess says that if Beck dies, she will never forgive him. At that moment, our hero teleports to escape the bone prison the necromancer created to trap him. Then, he senses something coming from behind him and teleports again, managing to dodge a blow the necromancer cast while his back was turned. Right after that, he charges at him with his magic sword and lands 2 slashes on the enemy. Our protagonist brought several perfect glue potions, using them to dissolve bones, precisely in situations like this, where the enemy creates a barrier. When he throws the perfect glue potions at the necromancer's barriers, they begin to come apart, leaving the enemy completely furious, and he casts a bone-piercing spell. However, the protagonist is smart and teleports behind the enemy and avoids the attacks, taking advantage of this opening from behind him to try to strike him in the back with Terry Von. But the enemy notices and gives him a malevolent smile, as a sharp bone comes up from beneath the ground and hits the teleportation mage, who is badly injured in the arm and then takes a few steps back to get away from the necromancer. The necromancer grips the spear made of bones and begins to intimidate our hero. Our protagonist knows that, even weakened, he is still a 5th level mage, which makes the fight difficult. That also means that, being 5th level, he can barely manage to do what he's doing, because he is very tired hand, if Beck attacks him one more time, he can bring him down. But with the pain, he won't be able to use mental strength or cancel the teleport's movement, making the protagonist think of other alternatives until he finds one. Facing the enemy, fallen on the ground, Sabi tries to launch an attack with the bone spear. Our hero throws himself away before being hit by the blow, which makes the enemy laugh, thinking he is running away. Beck Yuziel crawls pathetically, but he only needs to hold on a little longer. He starts struggling and fleeing farther away, which leaves the enemy in ecstasy, thinking he is winning. Sabi says he will finish the boy now, smiles, and is certain he has won this fight. Our protagonist thinks this, because the distance between him and the villain is 13 meters. So, he won't need to cancel the teleport's movement, thus using his teleportation skill while holding his magic sword. The moment he disappears, the enemy falls into despair, shocked to see the Stella Academy student in front of him, about to deliver a blow with his sword. Our mage lets out a heroic shout and carries out the attack with the magical sword Terivan. All the students notice that the elite black skeletons begin to disappear at that moment. They wonder whether Beck Yuziel was really able to defeat the necromancer. They can't believe they made it out of that situation alive because of Beck. Our hero defeated the villain by driving the magical sword into his chest and now feels exhausted. After that, they were handed over to the Order of Magic Knights and returned to the Magic Academy. His professor scolds him because he had said he would train in a safe place and went to the cemetery. Beck apologizes, but according to the school's rules, he will receive a penalty in points. However, for protecting his friends, even while breaking rules, it was admirable and he will receive a reward for it. Our hero gives thanks and needs to rest, because his thigh was injured and it will take days to recover. At that moment, Acel appears to talk with the teleportation mage. She thanks him for the boy's deeds, and he says she can pay him back later. Acel asks whether she can do the same as him too, if she works hard. Our protagonist is shocked, because in the novel, Acel would never ask that question, and she changed because of him. Because he interfered, the princess faced trials without having her own overcoming narrative. To fix that, Beck Yuziel says she doesn't need to ask him that. After all, she has already performed miracles that many judge to be impossible. Our protagonist says he knows that, because he watched her for a while. Making the girl embarrassed, he regrets having said that, because it sounds like he's a stalker. Ashamed of what he just said, our protagonist leaves the place. No one cares about the daughter of a traitor, but Beck Yuziel is different with her, leaving the girl happy, because he said he watched her for a while and praised her achievements. The next day, they receive people from the Magic Order and the Tower, as well as journalists, for the award ceremony. At that moment, the protagonist notices that the girl beside him is much more excited than usual. His professor announces that they will award the 12 brave students who faced the demonic humans. This prize will be presented directly by the Academy's director, Stella, which surprises the heroes. Eltman Eltwin, the 9th-tier archmage who stands at the pinnacle of humanity. He has an official age of 300 years, yet always wears a calm smile. The Massacrer is the name he is known by, or the strongest warrior mage in the world, which contrasts with his harmless appearance, as he praises the team of students for their courage, until he comes to stand right in front of our hero, who feels the pressure when making eye contact with him. This is the power of one of the world's 10 9th-tier archmages, but Beck Yuziel feels motivated not to avert his gaze. Noticing this, Eltman Eltwin appreciates his effort, and says he expected that from him. The protagonist is confused by the director's words, and with that the award ceremony comes to an end. Beck receives a reward of 5 million, and won't have to worry about money for a long time. He also received a vessel of strength, which is like the necromancer's heart. When Alterisha manages to create a dimensional space, carrying items will become easy. He is happy that the students agreed to split the rewards, and he will also receive a reward from the system. For completing episode 4 of the necromancer's attack, he receives a large amount of experience. For developing the story in a unique way, he receives a reduced version of the items and skills obtained in the game. However, our protagonist is unsure what that is. Next, he wants to receive the experience points for the frontal teleport skill, because it is the most important. After all, in the battle against the necromancer, he realized how weak he is. Trying hard like the others won't help, because he needs to use his knowledge to get as far ahead as possible. The reward is delivered by the system, and the frontal teleport skill increases in level, thus reaching class 2, with a range of 12 meters, a maximum of 3 charges, and a 3-second cooldown. Finally, he can use teleport up to 3 times in a row, which will give more flexibility in fights. Now he says it's time to see Acel. We see the Abyss meditation class, where the princess is present. Suddenly, a voice begins calling to her. A kind of magical spectral butterfly draws her attention while she meditates, creating crystals above her, and the girl doesn't know how she created that without calculating magical formulas. She wonders if no one else noticed, because it's a first-level spell, but they should have felt the flow of mana. If this is a real effect of the meditation, the person who appeared there already expected it. After that, the girl goes to eat a bread roll she managed to buy thanks to the credit prize she received. until a blonde boy with a snobbish look comes over to talk to her. When he asks whether she is in any club, Acel says no. So he invites her to join the club, and she asks whether there are any conditions. The boy says there are no conditions. He is inviting her because he likes her. Deep down, she knows he is trying to use her as a trophy, and says she does not believe him. He says he is not imposing any conditions and that she only needs to join the club and stay with him. Then he will offer her more things. The boy starts trying to brag about his background, and she knows very well where he comes from. After all, the Scalban Empire is in conflict with the Adalabit Kingdom. With Prince Jeremy's power, she knows her hard life will end and she can accept more than a cheap bread roll. She also would not have to endure the humiliation of being called a traitor's daughter. Before she could accept that humiliating contract, her friend appears and slaps her across the face. Flame leaves both of them in shock with her completely sudden and unexpected action. She yells at Acel and says she cannot abandon her like that, after saying she likes her. Then she pulls her away from there to talk alone with Princess Acel. Flame says this almost ended badly and asks the girl to thank her for saving her, because if she had refused without a reason, that rich brat would have tormented her for the rest of her life. Then she apologizes for slapping her and leaves the place. She wonders whether she did the right thing, because if she had gone down that path and let her join the club, she would be destroyed by Jeremy. She tried not to interfere with the original story, but after what Beck did, she did not think it was that bad. A bit neurotic, she hopes he has not found out her lies. Meanwhile, Jeremy is having tea and finds out the girl's name is Flame. He realizes she told a lie to get away right in front of him. He finds her even more interesting than Acel and comes to the conclusion that he wants her for himself. The magic teacher is going to start the combat simulation against monsters. In the simulation, the target will be a medium-sized, third risk level monster, more challenging than before. The method will be to form teams and defeat monsters with a straightforward strategy. Each team will choose a medium-sized monster to face and will have time to train against it. They go to the Astella Dome to choose the terrain and hunt the medium-sized monster they adapt to best. The evaluation will be in 4 days, and they must form a team of up to 6 people and submit the list. Acel hates teamwork and watches people sucking up to the princess. Several people try to form a team with her, and Hong Di-yun is surrounded by people. Meanwhile, Acel is completely alone, and no one asks to group up with her. Before the Adalabit Kingdom destroyed her family, her friends also used to stay around her like that. The two had the same starting point, House Malv, of ice, and the Adalabit royal family, of fire. When the two families dominated the world of magic, they always clashed, and the two talented children born in those clans were Hong Bai-yun and Acel Malv. Back then, she thought she was the chosen one, and now she wonders whether she can take revenge on Adalabit. Until, at that moment, our protagonist appears and asks whether the girl is alone. With a smile on his face, he invites her to be his partner for the creature hunting assignment. Princess Hong notices this and wonders why they are forming a pair, since there is no minimum number. Beck wants a pair to earn extra points for a reduced team. Acel thinks it will be difficult for just the two of them to face a third-level monster. Our protagonist asks whether she will accept, and she accepts, because she has no one to do the assignment with her. Then he goes to the teacher to hand in the list, and Princess Hong comes to talk to her. She comes to confront Acel and accuses the girl of not behaving properly for an heir to the throne. But Acel knows that, deep down, this was not because of the rivalry and skill between them. It was because of Beck Uziel. Hong feels bad for having lost to a failure like Acel, even though she could join any faction and build her team. At the very least, a knight title would be essential to make it fair. She goes to talk to Ma Yuxiang and asks whether he already has a team. The novel's hero says he wants to go solo, but the princess invites him to join her. In the end, Beck Uziel and Acel teamed up, and that catches Ma Yuxiang's attention. The two intend to face a special medium to large monster together. Because of that, she repeats herself and asks again whether Ma Yuxiang wants to team up with her. Since he wants to compete with Beck at least once, he ends up agreeing to form a duo with the princess. Princess Hong Bai-yun is obsessed with beating those two in the competition this time, and after 4 days of preparation, the monster combat simulation begins. We see a team of 5 students around a giant purple slime monster. The professor then announces that they will begin the practical evaluation for the S and A classes, where each person faces a different medium-sized, Class 3 monster. Team 16 gets a very tricky monster, and Flame says she has trained a lot. She intends to defeat a risk level 3 medium monster alone to get the maximum score. 5 level 1 mages can manage to face a level 1 risk medium-sized monster. If there is an attribute advantage, experience, and other factors, it is possible to face higher level monsters. Since she is a light magic user, she doesn't have much of an attribute advantage, and there's nothing to be done, but she hopes Acel Malf does well on her test. The original noble girl, because of Hong, couldn't form a team with anyone and received the worst grade. Because of that, she thought about recruiting the girl, but Beck showed up and her future may take a better turn. She notices Team 16 winning and Team 17 being next. Team 17 is made up only of her, as she prepares to enter the battlefield. Until, suddenly, she trips and, before she hits the ground, our protagonist grabs her by the shirt. The girl thanks him, and our hero suggests that Flame tie her shoelace again. She thought her friend Jackie had tied it well, but she would have been in trouble in the fight if Beck hadn't noticed. Next, she gets ready, takes her staff, and assumes a battle stance. The students comment that she is alone against a giant mountain monster. The monster has no special weakness, and you can't even attack it with an opposing element. The evaluation for Team 17, made up of Flame, is about to begin. The giant mountain boar charges at her with everything it has. A rush that makes the people in the room wonder how she will deal with it alone. The girl casts her magic, the whisper of petals carried by the wind. Vines then begin to grow from the ground and bind the giant mountain boar. Next, she uses matter transmutation to turn the base into ice. She says it's not over yet, and then casts another spell. However, at that moment, the monster manages to break free from the elemental restraints made by Flame. Getting very close to her, at the exact second she was about to be hit, her spell is cast. A great beam of light shoots toward the boar, striking it in the mouth with maximum intensity, leaving a large hole in the creature, which falls to the ground and is defeated by the girl alone. The other teams grow envious, because they didn't even defeat the medium-sized monster with 5 people, and she managed to defeat a giant monster alone with ease. Suddenly, she sees a female leg and wonders if she saw it wrong and had some kind of hallucination. Next comes the practical evaluation of Team 31, which is made up of Hong Bai-yun and Ma Yixiang. When the two enter, the whole class gets excited to see the princess and Ma Yixiang in action, while Flame wonders why the two are together, instead of forming their own factions. They shouldn't have any kind of connection with each other, and, even so, they formed a duo. At that moment, a gigantic water demonfish appears, the special medium-sized monster. It's rare to find one of these, and it's not just any kind of special medium-sized monster. Hong Bai-yun's and Ma Yixiang's attributes are fire, earth, and lightning. The demonfish is a water-type monster, with strong resistance to fire, that can even fly. It is the perfect opposite for both fighters. Besides wanting a special medium-sized monster, they want to win even with the attribute disadvantage. They are aiming for a high grade, but that will only happen if they win the fight. The two stop in front of the monster, which lets out a very frightening growl. At that moment, the two get ready, and everyone wonders what they are doing, because they are not attacking. The knight Ma Yixiang is behind the bishop and soon disappears, making an agile leap, jumping over the girl and very high up, which is quite impressive for a first-year student. It seems it will not be enough to reach the monster, because they cannot be used in midair. This makes the students wonder what strategy they are using, since Ma Yixiang is heading toward the fish, using his magic sword to summon chunks of stone, which he uses to support himself in the air. Then, the princess uses a fire spell to propel those stones and get Ma up to the monster's height. After Hong uses the fire, Ma gets close to the giant fish and invokes the giant fist spell, an earth spell that summons a huge hand, which throws a punch and knocks the monstrous fish to the ground. As soon as it falls, the novel's protagonist already starts invoking another earth spell. Several rocks rise from the ground and restrain the monster, which begins to scream desperately. However, it manages to break free, spreading enormous wings and letting out another thunderous scream. Just as Ma Yixiang expected, it broke free quickly, but it is already too late for the creature. Princess Hong's spell is complete, and a great deal of magical aura begins to emanate from her. A large beam of pink light is fired down onto the monster, injuring it. Everyone notices that it is in pain, even though the water demon fish has high resistance to fire. Right after that, Ma Yixiang casts a spell with his wand and declares that the fight is over, because, at that moment, he injects an extremely powerful lightning spell together with the princess's magic. With the two spells combined, the water demon fish does not even get a chance to attack and is defeated. Everyone is impressed with the first-year students, who are close to the S-class level of the third year. The ordinary students understand that this is what it means to be a genius at magic. Hong Bai-yun is certain that, no matter what choice Beck makes, he will not be able to defeat her, smiling and sure that, this time, she has beaten the teleportation mage. Finally, it is our protagonist and Izel's turn. Our hero asks for 5 monsters to be summoned for them to face. Everyone is stunned when he asks for that. After all, it is hard for 5 people to defeat 1 monster, so for 2 people to defeat 5 monsters seems impossible. Everyone has heard rumors about this student, and even so, they wonder if he is serious about what he wants to do. Soon, 5 monsters are summoned around the 2 fighters. Wei Zhen, a theoretical specialist in monsters, is impressed. Hamer Raiden, a shadow bull, Kaden, and a Nami slime, and finally, a giant sharpered bat, a combination that Wei Zhen considers far too dangerous. The previous duo grows curious to know what he is planning to do. They begin to watch the fight, attentive and eager to see Beck in action. The professor asks who is responsible for this summoning, and Beck speaks up. He says it is not a viable strategy, because he would be able to score points in situations like this as a knight, not as a bishop. However, the teleportation mage says he did not understand. After all, this strategy is viable precisely because of the bishop position, where the girl stays in the back and he is in front. Hearing that, the professor understands and allows them to begin the fight. Our protagonist confirms whether the girl can really do what they agreed on, and she says yes. The two show confidence in each other for this fight. However, Acel Mal thinks Beck Uziel is an indecipherable person, remembering when she asked the reason for his choice, since he could have chosen anyone else useful. Our protagonist says that there are many amazing people, and few can come close to Hong in magical power. In terms of control, few come close to Flame. Meanwhile, Ma Yuxiang is the strongest of the first year, and Xin and Adelen are very skilled in destruction. Even among so many good options, he still thinks Hong Baiyun is the best of all, and it was only for that reason. After that, they prepare to face the 5 monsters. Meanwhile, the girl remembers this now, in the middle of the fight, and becomes much more motivated. Even without understanding Beck's reason for choosing her, she knows he must have something in mind. For that reason, she is going to show everything she can do, and she begins to float and to emanate a great deal of aura at that moment. People recognize the sensory resonance ability, which is something only level 6 mages can do when they are in a state of full attunement. So dangerous that, if the person loses focus, they can lose the ability to manipulate mana for the rest of their life. For a first-year student to do something of that level is completely absurd. Our protagonist expected no less from the future Snow Queen. Seeing her in a state of complete magical plenitude, he knows he can begin the plan. His plan is to face the 5 monsters and defeat them, just the 2 of them. Right then, he grips Terry Vaughn and jumps toward the creatures, using the flash forward and attacking the frog, who is distracted, delivering a huge slash against this monster, which is left completely wounded and starts crying in pain. Hamer, the first monster, is already done for, and now he will focus on the Shadow Bull. The Shadow Bull sees the creature crying in pain and starts looking at a shining horn on the frog's head. That seems to rile it up, and it starts drawing in air and stomping its feet in anger, exactly the way our protagonist had planned. When he wondered how to face 5 monsters at once, he knew the strategy was simply to create a situation where they would have to fight each other. That's what he's doing now, making the monsters angry at one another. The students wonder what is happening, as the monsters start fighting among themselves with great fury. Our protagonist had already been expecting this situation where they would fight each other. It's a borrowing the sword strategy of Chinese origin, meant to make enemies strike each other. Experienced Ether World players thought about how to defeat many monsters while in small groups. The answer they found was to use the monster's specific traits against themselves. To begin, they needed to wound Hamer Raiden. Because of the wound and the sensation of pain, he activates a red light in his horn, which, consequently, ends up irritating the Black Bull and makes it attack the frog. The Black Bull, now irritated, scatters sand from its body in all directions. The moment the sand comes into contact with the slime Nami, it generates an absurd amount of water as a method of preventing dehydration. Our protagonist notices it's working. Because of the barriers in the arena, the water buildup worked. Finally, Caden the bird begins to use a scream above 7 octaves. To top it off, this stimulates the keen-eared bat because of its supersonic hearing, which makes it attack Caden at that moment, which also irritates the slime, and it attacks both of them. Thus, all of them begin to clash at once. The monster specialist realizes they did everything to provoke the monsters into attacking each other, and that was Beck's plan. Other teachers think the scariest part is Acel Malf's concentration. After all, being able to focus in the middle of an environment like that and retain as much energy as possible is difficult. This only shows the degree of trust she has in her partner, who took everything head-on and protects her. However, at that moment, the teleport mage notices a monster falling toward his friend. He uses the flash forward and delivers a kick to the giant bird to keep it from hitting the girl. After taking our protagonist's kick, Caden is defeated, and the girl continues floating and in a state of full concentration. To interfere again, another monster starts coming toward her, and the protagonist goes on alert, using his teleport again to get in front of the girl. Ma Yuxiang speaks to the princess and asks whether, at that moment, he is the ideal knight in her opinion. After all, he is embodying the perfect image of a knight who protects his princess, with our protagonist attacking all the monsters and preventing them from hitting the girl, who is in a state of full concentration, as if she were floating in space, until she opens her eyes and conjures the crystal flower spell. Behind her, a large crystal flower begins to emerge. The entire arena becomes covered in frozen crystals, along with the giant crystal flower. Next, she commands the flower to break apart, and it explodes, fragmenting into thousands of crystal pieces, which begin to strike all the monsters in the arena, leaving them frozen and defeated. However, someone claims the fight still isn't over, even with the monsters frozen. They begin to awaken, and the people at the academy suspect they won't win the fight. However, at that moment, she raises her hand, and a yellowish lightning spell begins to form. No one believes what she is doing, until she conjures the pulverization spell. A huge bolt forms above all the monsters and falls from the sky, causing them to be violently electrocuted after having been frozen. The girl looks at what she just did, and is impressed with herself. She didn't imagine her magic was enough for something of that scale. Realizing that Baek Yuziel was right, she was scared and thought he was crazy for wanting to face 5 monsters all at once. However, he said he trusted her to do it, and knew they had the ability to win, saying that if she didn't believe in herself, she should believe in him, who believes in her, and that would be enough. Before he appeared, the girl had nothing and was lost. She didn't know which direction to take, not even whether she had someone to tell her she would make it. Even so, the boy showed up and brought light into her life, and things changed. Now she has a light to follow and someone to tell her she will be able to achieve things. Because of that, she doesn't need to wander lost in the darkness again. After that, Team 32's exercise is concluded, and they win, just like the other team. Our protagonist clings to the ceiling with his magic sword and says he was almost hit by a cell. On the results board, Team 32 takes first place, and in second is Massachusetts Yuziang and Hong's team. Hong Bai Yun acknowledges their defeat this time because of Baek and Izel's performance, which was unexpected. Ma says she accepted the defeat much more easily than he expected. She knows that if her knight were Baek, she would have used a magical attack as strong as the girls. Even so, she wonders why the commoner is so obsessed with the girl. If he really is the ideal knight, he could stay by her side, since she will be the academy's most successful. That makes her angry, and in fact, the princess can neither acknowledge nor accept this situation. Feeling that she needs to investigate more about our protagonist, suddenly she notices a girl staring at her in a strange way. She wonders if she came because of the defeat against the commoners, and says she is a very annoying person. That woman doesn't stop staring at the princess, and notices that there is still a long way to go before something happens. Meanwhile, Flame knows that the crystal flower shouldn't have appeared so early in the story. It is a spell that Acel learns after overcoming hardships in the future. Her signature magic is tied to her persona, which would only appear when she regained her self-esteem. If the story were following the correct course, the poor girl should be becoming more and more withdrawn. However, instead of that, she even used the crystal flower in front of everyone, going against the original novel. Flame imagines that all of this happened because of Baek Yuziel. In the original story, Ma and Acel became one with their feelings amid the destruction of the world. Perhaps there is a part of the story that Flame still doesn't know, where Baek, who seemed like an unimportant character to the story, always loved her, and, at the moment the world collapsed, he chose to be brought back to this world. Maybe he chose to return so his beloved could keep living, even if he were forgotten by everyone. Wondering if he really feels nothing about that, which is strange, because it is something heavy, to give up on himself and be forgotten by people to achieve a goal for the sake of something he wants. She imagines the feeling that comes from that must be something very heavy. At that moment, Episode 5, The Master's Mission, is concluded. Our protagonist gains a large amount of experience. For choosing the best route of progress for the story, he receives a reward from the Constellation Project. Wondering what he got this time, he opens the reward system. His skills are already at a good level, and he wanted to gain something that would help in the next episode. So, he tells the system that he wants to receive the key item, the Leaf of Iphenol. Then, the system takes a moment, completes the analysis, and delivers his reward. The teleportation genius mage receives the key to the Leaf of Iphenol. It is a very rare item, which only the best players had access to. It is a key to the place of light where the spirits reside. To use it, he needs to leave the academy alone, which has become more difficult because of the last incident, until he remembers a club that can help him in this situation. Our protagonist writes a report about the story of his life and, after a long time, manages to finish it, finally being able to look for a club to join. Arriving at the bulletin board with various papers, he wonders which club is best for him to enter. There are few clubs that really provide external benefits, so he needs to think before joining. Talking with Acel, he realizes that she is also thinking about which club to join, since she isn't in any. He thinks that several people are calling her to be part of groups, but she reminds him that she has a bad reputation. After the last test, it seems that popular opinion about the girl changed a lot. Our protagonist imagines that she understands that very well. Even so, she still isn't being invited into groups and needs an analysis to choose a club. Meanwhile, Ma Yuziang shows up to talk to our hero as if he were his friend, praising his evaluation and the way he dealt with the necromancer, and saying that he admires Baek Yuziel, assuming the teleportation mage really is special, as they say. In a sinister tone, he claims to believe that Baek thinks differently compared to other people. Our protagonist says that's obvious, since he's just a commoner and thinks of different ways to get ahead in life. Next, he asks what Ma Yuziang has been doing on weekends, and he says he has been studying. Our hero says he doesn't need to lie, and the game's protagonist says he's telling the truth, confirming that he has been studying and training and does nothing else. However, However, he says he's trying to change. Our protagonist knows he was only supposed to start training later in the story, not now. He keeps wondering why, until the rich boy talks about training and the dungeons, saying that if it weren't for Acel that day, things would have gotten dangerous for him. Remembering the original story, he knows he will join Fulheim and defeat Hei Wonriang easily. However, because of what he did, those things still haven't happened. And the one who met Hei was also him, not Ma Yuxiang, and he wonders if that's why he's acting strange. He has nothing to complain about in the situation, because the two of them will become stronger than they already were. Unlike Beck, the two of them evolving will end up having a positive impact on the search for the best ending. Seeing that Beck isn't in any group, he invites him to join a club together. The protagonist says he must be prepared to meet the requirements, and Ma agrees and asks which club he wants to join. Our hero starts giving an extremely long description of everything he wants in a club. Acel thinks there isn't a club that can meet that many requirements, and the protagonist was joking, actually. So, Ma Yuxiang suggests that they create a club together. The teleportation mage asks if they can create a club where they can go out occasionally, and Ma says yes. Seeing that it's the novel's hero who is saying it, he believes him. Our protagonist asks if he's going to gain anything from it, because he can't see any benefit for himself. The prodigy says the benefit is staying close to him, stating that Beck is special. He remembers that one of the biggest problems of the game's protagonist is his morbid loneliness. Remembering that, he agrees to create the club together. Not forgetting Acel, he says to include her in the club too. Taking into account the romantic relationship between the two, he thinks she will handle his mental state well. At that moment, Ma even flirts with the girl, and the protagonist thinks their relationship will work out. Next, they ask Beck Yuziel what kind of club he wants to create. He says he has something in mind and creates the Adventure Club to try out culinary oddities. The girl wonders if it will work, because to receive the official seal, they need a professor and 4 members in the club. Ma says he can solve the problem of the members and the seal, just not the one about the supervising professor. Beck asks why he can't get a professor if he can get permission for occasional outings. In fact, Ma says he can't find a single decent professor among all those at Stella Academy. Then, he says he will solve the seal problem, which our hero knows won't be easy to obtain. However, he trusts him and knows he will ask permission from one of his contacts. In the main tower, inside the vice principal's office, Ma Yuxiang enters to talk, meeting the vice principal, who is actually his grandfather. Ma Yuxiang sits in the chair in his grandfather's office, and his grandfather wonders what he's doing there. Asking the reason for the visit, the boy shows the application document to open a club. His grandfather is going to see whether the minimum requirements have already been met. However, the rich boy slams his hand on the table, intimidating the old man, stating that there's no need to look at absolutely anything and that he should just sign without looking. The old man knows it's not good to go against this boy. After all, he is still the successor of a great man of the kingdom. The old man ends up agreeing and signs the paper for Ma. When he leaves, he notes that he's arrogant just like his father, even though he's merely mixed blood. In any case, this won't last for very long. At some point, the mustached old man will make sure to finish him off in an attack. And after that, we see the characters at school finishing another class. Jackie keeps blaming herself, because she could have given a better presentation than Flame in front of everyone. At that same moment, Flame appears to congratulate her friend on the presentation, saying that she doesn't need to take what the professor said seriously, and stating that the girl did well on the assignment. However, the girl doesn't want to listen, turns her back, and walks away. At that moment, the protagonist asks whether Flame can talk to the professors in his place, since she gets along with them. Our hero doesn't do it himself, because the professors don't like him. Flame says that's to be expected, since he always talks back and sleeps without even bothering to hide it. Then she goes on to say that nobody would want to listen to him. She remembers that he's close to the assistant Altherisha and gets an idea because of that. At that moment, the protagonist finds out that assistants can also be in charge of groups, and he didn't know that. Suddenly, he notices Professor Maze enter and walking by with a very strange smile on her face. Heading to Altherisha's lab, Beck Yuziel comes in at that moment to talk to the assistant. The girl is having trouble talking about what just happened and seems nervous. The hero sees papers on the floor with magic formulas and asks how the research she works so hard on is going. The girl feels a tightness in her chest when it comes to talking about it, saying that she gave her research to the professor and they want to use it at the academic conference. Even though she should feel proud, because her research is going to be presented to some very impressive people. Our hero knows she was robbed and that her name won't even appear at the conference. The girl tries to console herself by saying that's how it normally works and gives a fake smile. Our protagonist thinks there's no way he can ask her to be responsible for his group after that. He knows Professor Mazen will find out about the formula soon and would like Altherisha to handle it on her own. He asks about the research on the random flow intercession formula they worked on together. The girl says the idea was so spectacular that she invested in it and is trying to solve it, but nothing worked. She feels that if she can understand even just one part, everything will fall into place in sequence. However, our protagonist steps in and says he already solved it, saying it was by luck and that he doesn't understand what he did to solve it. So he grabs a piece of chalk and starts working it out on the board, leaving the girl in shock, asking whether she can understand what he's writing on the board. The girl says that if they use the formula and mixed dispersion and coefficient reflection and other nerdy stuff. At that moment, the protagonist notices she's entered a flow state and starts understanding everything, focused. Unlike him, who is someone who only copies everything he's seen before, the assistant is a genius. She will take humanity to new heights, and the most he can do is give her a push, and after that, trust her talent to apply the formula. After the assistant's help, he created the club and, as president, managed to get a free pass. Even though they doubted him during the process, as was the case with his professor, he received authorization. So he was able to travel and hopes nothing goes wrong. Arriving at the tree of the third world, the orchard of trees. Seeing up close the game's graphics, which are incredible, an elf welcomes the mage from Stella Academy, hoping that his deepest wish will reach Mother Earth. He wonders if this has to do with Eltman Eltwin saving the tree of the second world from being burned. He recognizes that many elves became friendly when they see the school uniforms because of that. Many beautiful characters inhabit this setting. However, among them all, the elves are extremely beautiful, such as the elf king, Flor Saran. Saran won the hearts of many players with a celestial appearance, being the character with the most fan art in all of Ether World. Elves are born without gender, being a species that can change sex to match the one they love. Flor Saran was also born that way and, because he hadn't found any romantic partner, remained without gender. However, after he fell in love with Flame, he chose the male gender in the original story. No matter which route was chosen, it would be chaos, and his decision drove many men to despair. Finally, our protagonist finds the hidden dungeon of the Garden of the Hainal Spirit Leaf. His abilities are well strengthened and he prepared for the future. That's why he accepted the Hainal Spirit Leaf key, managing to use it faster than he imagined in the lock of this dungeon in the Elven Kingdom. He fits the key in and receives a warning that, upon opening this door, others with the key will be notified. He feels like he's seen this somewhere else, and has already confirmed with other players that there is no special event. Imagining that nothing bad can happen, he opens the dungeon door, receiving the warning that the door to the Garden of the Hainal Spirit Leaf has been opened. The cradle of the celestial tree, which is the realm of the elves, is this place that seems to be above the heavens. Inside, we see an elf waking up in white clothes and looking at the tree of the third world. Seeing that the world remains at peace, this is the king of the elves, Flor Saran. When he sees a bird flying, he wonders when he will be able to be free like them, feeling very envious of the birds, who can fly freely, until he senses a very heavy energy and wonders who entered the slumbering garden of the spiritual leaf. He tries to ignore it and hold on. After all, he has endured it for many decades. However, it seems impossible now, because the curse can be triggered and drive someone mad. That is why Saran is so troubled. He feels he must wait until the World Tree's anniversary, which is near, and then take a look. Meanwhile, our protagonist is in the garden and starts sneezing because of the pollen, until roots begin to come out of the ground, aggressive, trying to grab his foot. He manages to dodge and fears that, if this continues, fighting them will never end. He knew it would be like this, and that's why he brought a fire bomb to end it faster. Our hero throws the fire bomb and sets the trees ablaze. Next, he takes Terrivon and uses its annihilation skill to cut the roots, reaching the center of those plants and delivering a fatal attack with his magic sword, managing to defeat the creature, which falls apart. He receives the experience point for it. Tired of facing so many monsters, he wants to go to his real objective, entering the boss room of this place's dungeon, becoming frightened when he sees the celestial Hainal face to face, leaning against a pillar. The most mysterious existence in this world is the celestial spirits, pure souls that spend centuries until they reach true awakening, evolving into a new form of life. Even in Ether World, they are very rare. However, the creature in front of him is not a complete celestial spirit. That woman was interrupted at the last moment, had her heart torn out, and became trapped in this state. Our protagonist walks slowly toward her, but his feet lock up, feeling a mana pressure, which is the power of celestial spirits. Beck Yuziel does not want to give up and continues to fight against Hainal's magical pressure, until he manages to slowly approach the statue of the woman, kneeling and praying, falling to his knees in front of her, and the experience of the mana dissipator trait increases. Our protagonist feels that he can finally breathe, and his attributes increase as well. He understands that this place is the last training ground left behind by a celestial spirit. One of the greatest mystical fortunes that mages all over the world can find is a mana vein. Even simple training yields much more, and if he absorbs the spirit's energy, his affinity with nature increases. He went through all that trouble to find a kind of academy that will make him much stronger. However, before that, he takes the branch of resentment, which is a secret artifact that was on the statue's arm. This branch is advanced rank and applies the resentment status, which deals damage and can stack. With that, he knows he can face Professor Mayzentiran, the boss and villain of episode 8. Having obtained a dark artifact, it is time to begin training. A few weeks pass and the protagonist has Mana Dissipator at level 3, and his traits have increased. His stats are almost halfway to the 2-star rank, even though he still has a long way to go. After all, the protagonists have attributes above rank 4. In this world, there is no one to teach him swordsmanship, so he attacks and repeats until he hits the enemy's vital points, knowing that he has to push himself more and more to be able to cut down his enemies and defeat them through sheer effort. Until, in the middle of one of his training sessions with his magic sword, he starts coughing a lot and growing weak, receiving the notice that he has partially learned a special human breathing technique. This skill is the breath of the celestial spirit, which he has acquired. However, our protagonist's vision starts to go blurry and hazy, hearing someone's voice talking to him, saying a lot and even cursing at Beck. He becomes very frightened and asks whose voice it is and where it is coming from, understanding that this is the celestial spirit Iphanil, who is speaking to him, finding it strange that Iphanil has just spoken to him, since she is not alive. The statue says that she has been talking for a long time, actually, and he is the one who was not listening. Beck asks why he started hearing her now, and she says that they became similar, and because of that, he is hearing her. Just now, he released the exact same spirit breathing, and Beck understands the system's message. The breath of the celestial spirit is something he can harmonize with nature, and it increases the mana rate in the blood. He sees that it is an absurd ability with a short duration. However, his physique reaches the level of 4 stars. Spiritual erosion basically means losing one's human body. After all, spirits maintain their form through their own magical power. However, he is a mana dissipator with that syndrome, and losing his body, for him, means dying. So this ability actually wears down our protagonist's life. Even so, he looks on the bright side and realizes it is useful in extreme situations. The spirit says this is the second time she has seen humans using the breath, and he seems almost invisible, with no mana in his body. Iphanil mentions that man used a sword and cut through magic, and even celestial spirits. Beck doesn't remember anyone mentioning a swordsman who cuts spirits in the game, and thinks he must be a very strong monster. When he asks if he can see him, the spirit says the 12 disciples of the great arcanist defeated him a long time ago. However, Iphanil says she can show him. After all, she recorded all of his movements and breathing techniques. However, she says she has a condition, because she cannot move or talk to anyone, saying it is as if she were not alive, and that the condition to teach this technique is for Beck to bring her a heart, thus bringing her back to life. Our protagonist says that is impossible. After all, at his level, there is no way he can obtain the heart of another celestial spirit. The spirit says it can be the pure heart of a spirit beast, and Beck says she will lose her powers if she uses that. However, the spirit agrees and thinks it is better than being trapped in that place, alone and forever. Beck Uziel says that if the heart is from an ordinary spirit beast, it will not be so impossible to obtain. The reason he is training there is because the familiar contract ceremony will happen soon, which is the time when there is a chance to find several of those beasts. It is much more feasible than trying to obtain the heart of another celestial spirit. So our protagonist says he will try to get one, and the spirit is very grateful. In addition, she offers him something behind the pillar as a gift. It is a Iphanil flower necklace, which symbolizes their friendship and has no other function. An item he has never heard of in the game. He says it can be used as firewood to start a fire. He remembers she is a celestial being, and that this is a spiritual symbol that may end up being useful after all. Meanwhile, the assistant is still in the laboratory room trying to solve the formula, until, after hours, she finally manages to understand the magical formula. However, she still does not celebrate. She stands up and makes some notes, saying that tomorrow will be a new era beginning in the world, stating that Beck Uziel will be happy when he learns of her work. In the Dwarven Kingdom, the city of the Gold and Iron Mine, which is the capital of the Black Iron Empire, our protagonist and the assistant arrive at the place on the day of the academic conference. The event location changes every year, and now it will be held at the leading alchemy schools specializing in gold and silver. Since the dwarves are the main ones responsible for discoveries in material magic, they expect an outrageous event. In addition, the greatest alchemist, Huang Suk Cotton, known as the Gold Alchemist, will be there. It is the perfect moment to unveil Altherish's research. She, insecure, asks if he thinks it will really work. After all, it is something the professor researched for most of her life, and the protagonist says she must be very stupid. Beck Uziel states that she did not steal Professor Meisen's research. She is just smarter than her, and there is no reason to worry. They continue on their way and avoid walking the red carpet, entering through the back. They receive a welcome from the doctors and researchers of the Alchemy Academy, and the host begins the 87th conference of the Golden Section. The first topic is the announcement of a new type of potion, so he lets Professor Mayzentiran, from Stella Academy, explain more about it. She introduces herself and says she will be responsible for the research on alpha-type red potions. The professor gives her entire presentation and, when she finishes, receives many applauses and compliments. Everyone says she managed to expand the potion even further, which was already very complicated. Our protagonist gets irritated irritated that she is presenting Altharisha's research as if it were her own. He knows they could repay the favor in various ways, but taking revenge like this will be the best. At that moment, they call the professor's assistant from Stella Academy up onto the stage. The girl introduces herself, and some people recognize her, until she gets to the topic, which is the process of understanding the technique of intersecting random flows. People are surprised and ask whether she has any idea how grand what she is talking about is. The girl becomes a little insecure because of the comments, and she says they can use the strands of alchemical thought to understand what she is going to say. She says that this technique makes no sense at all, since magic and alchemy are not even compatible. To make matters worse, it is a problem that has not been solved in 300 years, and no one believes that this girl solved it out of nowhere. Huang says they cannot call themselves alchemists if, after the first failures, they say something is impossible. He is curious about a young alchemist who seeks the truth in the realm of something impossible. He asks her to continue the presentation and show what she discovered about the magic formula. However, before she can begin, she receives an objection from Professor Mayzentiran. Before she begins the presentation, she would like to raise an objection regarding the assistant's paper, saying that there is suspicion of plagiarism, and the Golden Alchemist is surprised by this. However, she will be punished if she raises an objection and cannot substantiate it. Thus, the professor goes up on stage and says that there are 5 obstacles regarding the flow formula. It is necessary to overcome all of them so that alchemy and magic, together with technology, can coexist in harmony. To this day, only 2 have been solved, and even then they were still incomplete. She, on the other hand, managed to solve 4 of these obstacles, and she says that Altharisha is currently her assistant. If that is true, then the research would belong to Professor Mayzentiran. She asks whether, even having managed to solve the 5th problem, she can still claim to have solved the other 4 on her own. The professor knows that the girl has overwhelming talent and genius. However, her life as an alchemist will end there, and Altharisha's talent will be hers forever. The girl had already imagined that this would happen, but while it happens right in front of her, her mind goes blank. She remembers what Beck Uziel said about relying on him when she was in trouble, saying that she wants to call an assistant to help at this moment. So, she calls the co-creator of this paper, the student Beck Uziel, who is surprised by her call and by the fact that he was labeled as the co-creator of the project. Everyone is surprised to see that a young student was the co-creator of this project. Even the Golden Alchemist is very impressed and is eager to see it. Beck Uziel walks up to the stage, passing the professor with his head lowered. At the moment he passes her, he takes out the branch of resentment, and he leaves it activated, with the target being Mei Zhen, using the boiling grudge skill. He sees the woman get angry at him and realizes the skill worked. Thus, our protagonist stands before the crowd of alchemists. The first thing he says is that he paid close attention to the professor's arguments, and he thinks that actions speak louder than words. Therefore, he proposes a competition between the two to see who can solve the random flow formula. Everyone finds it strange to have a thesis analysis competition between the professor and the assistant. When Altharisha gets scared, he asks if she trusts him, and she says yes. He has watched her all this time and is sure she can do it. He says that if she does not trust herself, she can trust him, who, consequently, is someone who believes in her. The girl is a little insecure, but she thinks Beck is right and that she needs to have more confidence in herself. So, she ties her hair back and decides to begin the competition against Professor Mayzentiran. The random flow intercession formula was declared by an alchemist 300 years ago, saying that he discovered an incredible method capable of solving the formula. However, not long after that, he slipped in the bathroom and died, and the formula became even more famous. After that, countless different alchemists tried to solve this formula. However, until then, all had failed in the process, and no one else dared to try to solve it in the present day. Therefore, currently, solving the formula is considered impossible, and now they claim they can solve it. Kane, the extermination captain of the Waning Moon Tower, finds this interesting. However, the vice captain of the 13th Extermination Unit, Hyojin Macaron, finds it boring. Talking among themselves, they wonder whether that professor really is the Dark Mage. No matter how many times they think about it, it seems they believe this mission is going to be a bust. Either way, the problem is that they believed everything the old man told them. However, they seem to change their minds when they see that the atmosphere in the hall has changed a lot. After all, the two of them finished the first problem of the formula. These are similar interpretations, with slightly different perspectives. Even so, the assistant's approach is more concise and clearer than the professor's, and even their conclusions are a bit different at the end. Now, they move on to the second problem of the formula. Everyone in the hall finds it incredible, because no one solves the second problem like this. Altharisha solves a problem that normally takes 200 lines in just 12. Our protagonist realizes that people's reaction is positive, and the real show is about to begin now. That is when they will meet in the middle of solving the third problem of the formula. A problem that had never been solved until then, and everyone wonders whether it will be solved today. The two continue writing on the board aggressively. The Golden Alchemist thinks it's impossible that they are really managing to solve this problem. In his view, Professor Maizen is incredible for trying to solve the problem, but the assistant solves it with depth. When the professor sees her method of solving it, she becomes completely irritated. Wondering how someone can see it that way, she reads the solution, impressed. The more experienced alchemists analyzed each problem of that formula individually, but the assistant did something different from that. She doesn't see them as separate parts, but as components of a whole. That was the main difference between their solutions, which made them continue solving the problem in different ways, until the professor forgets the formula she was supposed to use at a certain part. Seeing that the blackboard won't be enough, she asks for more boards and starts shouting. However, it is at that moment that her assistant finishes the entire solution to the formula. She says that the system for understanding the technique of intercession of random flows is complete. At last, she concludes her thesis on the magic formula at that moment, leaving all the alchemists there speechless, until they begin praising her for a moment that will go down in history. Overcome with emotion, everyone states that this is the discovery of the century. Altherisha is very happy to have truly succeeded and thanks Bakiziel, who is also applauding, says that all of this is thanks to him. However, it is at that moment that the professor begins to emanate a malevolent